Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Science Channel. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. There's no rush now, no schedule to keep, nothing waiting on the other side of this moment. You've arrived, and that's enough. Maybe you've had one of those long days that seem to stretch out behind you, like a road you're glad to finally leave. Or maybe you're the curious sort, the kind of person who would rather fall asleep wandering through the story of living things than counting sheep in the dark. Either way, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Tired minds and curious ones are both welcome here, and tonight, you can be both at once. There's nothing you need to do from here. You don't have to follow along, or remember a single word, or stay awake to the end. Let your body grow heavy against the bed. Let your breathing slow all on its own. Let your shoulders soften, and your jaw, and the small space between your eyebrows where the day likes to gather. If you drift off somewhere in the middle of a sentence, that's not a failure. That's the whole point. That's exactly right. Tonight, we're going to travel gently through the long, slow story of evolution. Not as a lesson, and not as something you have to grasp, but as a kind of journey. We'll drift back across an almost unimaginable stretch of time, back toward the first faint flickers of life, and then wander forward again, following the quiet thread that connects every living thing that has ever been. It's a story with no hurry in it at all. Life took billions of years to become what it is. We have only the length of one calm night, and that's more than enough to float through the parts that matter. Some of what we'll pass tonight may surprise you. There's a single ancestor that every creature on Earth can trace itself back to. A shared great-grandparent for beetles and blue whales, and you. There's the strange truth that the air in your lungs right now was, in a sense, an accident. A kind of waste left behind by something far too small to see. There's a piece of you, tucked inside nearly every cell, that was once a separate living thing with a life of its own. And there's a code, written in just a few simple letters, that reads almost exactly the same in a redwood tree, a mushroom, and the hand resting on your blanket. Some of these may surprise you, or they may simply keep you gentle company as you drift. And just before we begin, if these calm, curious journeys help you unwind, or give you a softer way to end your day, you might consider liking this video and subscribing. It's a small thing, but it helps other tired minds find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. Now, if you're ready, let's begin. Life on Earth is almost unimaginably old. We tend to think of ancient things in terms of centuries or thousands of years, the age of a ruin or a written word. But life reaches back so much further than that. The best evidence we have suggests that living things have been here for something close to 3.5 billion years, and perhaps longer still. To hold that number is nearly impossible. If you tried to count out those years one heartbeat at a time, you would fall asleep and wake and live your whole life and still be nowhere near the end. Life is like an old, old song that began before there was anyone to hear it, and has simply never stopped playing. And so, before we go anywhere at all, it helps to let that vastness settle over you like a heavy quilt. You are the newest verse of something extraordinarily patient. Every living thing you have ever met is in some sense your cousin. This is not a poem or a kindness. It's a plain reading of the evidence. Somewhere deep in the past, scientists believe there lived a single population of simple cells from which all later life descended. They call it the last universal common ancestor, sometimes shortened to a soft little name, Luca. From that one ancient starting point, everything branched. The oak outside your window, the spider in its corner, the bacteria on your skin, the whales moving through the cold dark of the sea, and you. We are all leaves on the same unthinkably old tree, each of us connected, if you follow the branches down far enough to the very same root. It's a quiet thought to rest inside. You have never once in your whole life been truly alone in the family of living things. The very first life may have begun in the dark, at the bottom of the sea. When we imagine life starting, we might picture a sunlit pool, warm and shallow, stirred by lightning. But there's a growing view among scientists that the cradle of life lay somewhere far stranger and far darker, deep beneath the ocean, around cracks in the sea floor where warm, mineral-rich water seeps up from inside the earth. These are the hydrothermal vents, and around them, even now, life gathers without a single ray of sunlight. There, the theory goes, the right chemistry could have come together, sheltered and steady, drawing energy straight from the planet itself. Life, in this telling, was born not under an open sky, but tucked away in the deep, like something asleep in a warm, dark room. And there's a gentle symmetry in that, isn't there? That the first stirrings of everything might have happened in the very kind of stillness you're settling into now. Long before DNA, there may have been only a simpler thread. We think of DNA as the keeper of life's instructions, that famous twisting ladder curled inside our cells. But DNA is a rather complicated thing to build, and many scientists suspect it wasn't first. Before it, they think, came a humbler molecule called RNA, a single strand rather than a double one. RNA has a rare gift. It can both carry information, the way DNA does, and also fold up and do work, the way proteins do, one molecule playing two roles at once. So perhaps the earliest life ran on RNA alone, in a time researchers gently call the RNA world, long before the more elaborate machinery arrived. It's like imagining the first draft of a story, written in a single simple hand, before all the later chapters and characters were ever added. From something that's spare and quiet, everything that followed slowly grew. Evolution has no plan and no place it is trying to reach. This is one of the most misunderstood things about the whole story, and one of the most peaceful once you let it in. We often imagine evolution as a ladder climbing steadily upward, from simple to complex, aimed at something, aimed at us. But it isn't a ladder at all. It's more like a river finding its way downhill, following whatever path happens to open, with no destination in mind. There's no goal written anywhere, no finish line, no intended end. Living things simply change, generation by generation, and the ones suited to their moment tend to carry on. It's less like a march and more like water moving through a landscape, patient and unhurried, going wherever the ground allows. There's a strange comfort in that. Nothing about you was aimed at. You are here because a long, gentle series of small changes happened to lead this way. Nearly every great change begins as a simple copying mistake. When a cell divides, it must copy all of its genetic instructions, letter by letter, into the new cell. It does this astonishingly well, but not perfectly. Now and then, a single letter is swapped, or dropped, or doubled. Most of these small errors change nothing at all. Some are unhelpful and quietly fade. But once in a great while, a tiny slip turns out to be useful in the world the creature happens to live in, and it lingers and is passed on. These little errors, these mutations, are the raw material of all the variety you see. Every feather, every leaf shape, every color of eye began as an imperfection in a copy. It's a tender idea, really, that so much of life's beauty grew not from perfection, but from the small, forgivable ways that living things get things ever so slightly wrong. The engine of all this change has a surprisingly gentle name. We call it natural selection. And though the words can sound cold, the idea underneath is quiet and almost obvious once you hear it. In any group of living things, individuals vary a little from one another. Some of those small differences make it a touch easier to survive or to raise young in a particular place and time. Those individuals tend to leave behind a few more descendants who carry the same helpful traits. And so, over many generations, the trait becomes common. No one chooses. Nothing is forced. It's simply that what works tends to stay, and what doesn't tends to gently drift away. Like a slow tide arranging pebbles on a shore, sorting them without any hand or intention, evolution shapes the living world one small advantage at a time. You are, in a very real sense, a colony. Tucked inside nearly every cell of your body are tiny structures called mitochondria, the small engines that turn your food and breath into usable energy. And here is the strange and lovely part. Long, long ago, mitochondria were not part of us at all. They were free-living bacteria, drifting on their own. Then, more than 1 billion years back, one of them was taken inside a larger cell, and instead of being destroyed, it stayed, and the two learned to live as one. That ancient partnership never ended. Right now, as you lie still and breathe slowly, countless descendants of those swallowed bacteria are humming quietly within you, keeping you warm, keeping you alive. You are not a single thing. You are a truce between ancient lives, an old friendship still holding, deep inside your own cells. The air in your lungs was, in a way, invented by something too small to see. For much of Earth's early history, there was almost no free oxygen in the atmosphere at all. The sky, then, would have been unbreathable to us. Then, more than 2 billion years ago, tiny living things called cyanobacteria learned a new trick, drawing energy from sunlight and releasing oxygen as the leftover. They did this for an enormous span of time, breath after breath after breath, until the oxygen slowly built up and filled the air and the seas. Everything that breathes today, every animal, every person, lives on what those small green cells gave off as waste. It's humbling to think that each easy breath you take tonight is a gift handed down from creatures so simple they had no idea they were remaking the world. The sky itself is their quiet inheritance. You share pieces of yourself with a banana. It sounds like a joke, but it comes straight from the deep kinship of all living things. Because we all descend from that same distant ancestor, we all inherited many of the same basic instructions for how to build and run a living cell. A banana needs to repair itself, to release energy, to divide and grow, and so do you. And much of that machinery is ancient and shared. And so, when scientists compare the genes, they find a good many that are recognizably the same. Not because a banana is anything like you to look at, but because you both come from far enough back that you kept the same old tools. It's like two houses on opposite sides of the world, built by builders who long ago trained under the same distant teacher, still using the same quiet handful of techniques. The instructions of life are written in almost exactly the same alphabet everywhere. Inside every living thing, the code that spells out how to build a body is written using the same small set of chemical letters, arranged into the same kind of three-letter words. And here is the wonder of it. A word that means one thing in a bacterium means very nearly the same thing in a fish, in a fern, in you. The language barely changes across the whole of life. This is why scientists can take a gene from one creature and read it inside another, and it still makes sense. It is, in the truest way, a universal tongue, spoken silently in every cell that has ever lived. A single quiet grammar underlying the whole extraordinary variety of the living world. And it is being read gently and endlessly inside you, even now as you rest. Deep time is almost impossible to truly feel, and that's all right. Our minds are built for the scale of a day, a season, a lifetime, not for billions of years. So when we say that life is billions of years old, the number slides past us, too large to hold. But you don't need to hold it. You only need to let it be there, the way you might sense the size of the ocean while standing at its edge in the dark, not seeing it all, just feeling how vast and how patient it is. Everything we'll wander through tonight rests on that immense, slow foundation of time. Time enough for tiny changes to add up into whales and forests and thoughts. Let that vastness cradle you rather than trouble you. You are a small, warm, living moment near the very end of an enormously long and gentle story. And there is nowhere you need to be but here. For most of its history, life on Earth was nothing but single cells. We tend to picture evolution as a busy, crowded affair, full of creatures great and small. But that came very late in the story. For something like 3 billion years, the living world was a soup of tiny solitary cells, drifting and dividing in the water, never joining together into anything larger. They fed, they copied themselves, they died, and the whole vast pageant of it happened out of sight, smaller than a grain of dust. It was like an ocean that stayed calm and featureless for an age almost beyond counting. And it reminds us that patience is written into life at its very root, that the long uneventful stretches are part of the work too. Somewhere along the way, life stumbled onto a new way of mixing itself. For ages, a cell simply split in two, and each half was a near-perfect copy of the one before. But then came the slow invention of sex, which is really just the joining of two sets of instructions into one new blend. Two cells contribute their genes, and the offspring is a fresh shuffle of both, never quite like either parent. It's a little like shuffling two worn decks of cards together, so that every hand dealt afterward holds surprises. This gentle mixing is why no two of us are the same, and why life could keep finding new answers without waiting on chance alone. Bodies made of many cells were invented more than once. We often imagine the leap from a single cell to a whole creature as one grand moment, a single door swinging open. But the truth is softer and stranger than that. On many separate occasions, in many different lineages, cells that divided simply chose not to drift apart, staying linked, sharing tasks, becoming a body. Some became the outside, some the inside. Some learned to sense and some to move. It's like neighbors who, one quiet season, decide to share a wall and then a roof, until a scattering of houses has become a single town. Cooperation, it seems, is one of the oldest habits life ever kept. Then, rather suddenly, the seas filled with new shapes. For most of the tale, living things had stayed simple and small. But around 540 million years ago, in a stretch we call the Cambrian, animal life bloomed into a riot of forms. Almost every basic body plan we know today, and a good many we have since lost, appeared within a relatively short window. Rising oxygen, the arrival of hunters, and a new richness in the genetic toolkit may all have played a part. It was like a garden that had waded through a long drought, breaking at last into flower after a slow, soaking rain. And every animal alive now is a distant echo of that first great unfolding. The eye was invented over and over again. You might think that something so intricate, so finely made, could only have arisen once, a single lucky masterpiece passed down to all who see. Yet nature tells a humbler story. Starting from nothing more than a patch of skin that could tell light from dark, eyes have evolved independently as many as 50 or 60 separate times across the animal world, in creatures as unlike as a snail, a fly, and yourself. Each began with that simple sensitive spot, which deepened into a cup, then gained a lens, each lineage feeling its own way toward sight. It's like many travelers, setting out from different lands, all stumbling upon the same hidden spring. Seeing, it turns out, is a thing the world keeps quietly rediscovering. Some of the earliest eyes were made of stone. Long ago, the seas belonged to the trilobites, small armored creatures that scuttled across the ancient seafloor for hundreds of millions of years. And when they looked out at their world, they did so through lenses grown not of soft jelly, but of clear calcite, the very same mineral that forms in rock. Their eyes were tiny crystal windows, mineral and living at once, focusing light through geometry set into the crystal itself. It's like looking at the world through panes of polished glass that the body itself has grown. They are among the oldest gazes ever cast, fossilized now, still pointed patiently outward across the ages. The land was greened long before any animal walked on it. When creatures finally left the water, they arrived on continents that were already softly clothed. Plants and their fungal partners had crept ashore first, low mats of simple green clinging to the damp edges of things, slowly making soil where there had been only bare rock. Over long ages, they grew taller and bolder, until forests stood where deserts of stone had been. It was like a slow green tide, rising not in hours, but across tens of millions of years, until the world had changed its color. Every meadow and every forest you have ever rested beneath is the far descendant of that first quiet spreading. The first creatures to crawl ashore did it on fins that were becoming limbs. Long ago, in warm and shallow waters, there lived fish with thick, muscled, lobed fins. Unlike the thin fans of most fish today, inside those sturdy fins were bones arranged in a pattern that begins to look familiar. One bone, then two, then a spray of smaller ones, the faint early sketch of an arm and a hand. In the shallows, such fins could prop a body up, could push it through mud toward the next warm pool. It's a little like finding fingers folded quietly inside a fin. And every step you have ever taken traces back to those first tentative pushes against the muddy floor of a vanished sea. The tiny bones inside your ear were once part of a jaw. As you lie there now, listening to this voice settle over you, sound is passing through 3 of the smallest bones in your whole body, deep inside each ear. Astonishingly, those bones were not always for hearing. Far back among our reptile-like ancestors, they were part of the jaw, bones used for biting and chewing, which over long ages drifted and shrank and migrated inward, taking up a new and gentler task. It's as though tools once made for eating were quietly repurposed to catch a whisper. So the very sound carrying you towards sleep arrives through a piece of ancient machinery, remade for listening. Whales once walked on legs across dry land. It seems almost impossible watching them now, moving like slow gray islands through the open sea. But the ancestors of whales were 4-legged animals that lived on shore. Over many millions of years, they waded, then swam, then gave themselves fully to the water. Their front legs became flippers, their back legs faded nearly to nothing, and their nostrils crept up and back to become the blowhole on top of the head. It's like footprints pressed into wet sand, slowly smoothed away by an incoming tide, until only the faintest shape remains. Deep in every whale's body, hidden bones still remember the land it left behind. Some snakes still carry the ghost of legs they no longer use. To look at a snake gliding smoothly through the grass, you would never guess that its ancestors once had 4 good limbs. Yet the past lingers, tucked away and nearly invisible. Certain older snakes, like pythons and boas, still bear tiny remnants of hip bones deep in their bodies, and even small claw-like spurs where hind legs used to be. These leftovers do almost nothing now, faint souvenirs of a walking past. It's like a signature that has faded on an old letter, still just legible if you hold it to the light. Evolution rarely erases completely. It tends instead to trim, to shrink, to quietly set aside. Feathers came into the world long before anything flew. We so often link feathers with flight that it feels strange to separate them. Yet the first feathers had nothing to do with the sky. They appeared on small running dinosaurs, soft downy coverings that most likely kept a warm body warm, or made a plain creature a little more striking to look at. Only much later, on certain lineages, did those coverings grow long and stiff enough to catch the air and lift a body from the ground. It's like a coat first worn against the cold that one day, almost by accident, becomes a pair of wings. So flight arrived not as a plan, but as a gift wrapped inside something older and simpler. The dinosaurs never entirely left us. It's easy to think of them as gone, vast and thunderous and finished, buried forever in stone. But one branch of them, the small feathered ones, carried on, changed, and quietly kept living. We call them by another name now. We call them birds. The sparrow at the window, the gull turning over the harbor, the hen dozing in the yard. Each is a living dinosaur, descended in an unbroken line from those ancient runners. It's like an old family that simply changed its name and carried its blood forward into new centuries. And so, when you hear birdsong at dawn, you are hearing a voice far, far older than it sounds. Nature keeps arriving at the same shapes from different beginnings. Consider the sleek, tapered form of a dolphin and the very similar form of a shark. One a warm-blooded mammal, the other a fish, separated by hundreds of millions of years of ancestry. And yet they look remarkably alike, because the water asks the same thing of anything that would move through it swiftly: a smooth body, a fin, a gentle taper. Life, pressed by the same problem, keeps finding the same answer, over and over, from separate roots. It's like two poets in distant lands, never having met, writing very nearly the same line. The world, it seems, has its favorite solutions and returns to them again and again. Sharks are older than the trees. This one is quietly astonishing to sit with. Sharks have been gliding through the oceans for something like 400 million years, patrolling the seas long before the first true forests ever stood on land. When sharks first appeared, there were no oaks, no pines, no leaves turning in autumn wind, only low green things beginning to test the shore. They have outlasted countless kinds of creature, changing slowly, keeping mostly to a shape that worked. It's like a single melody that has gone on playing softly beneath every other song the world has since composed. There is a deep calm in things that have simply endured, needing little, asking little, staying. Every so often, the living world hands back something it seemed to have lost. There was a fish called the coelacanth, known only from ancient stone, believed to have vanished tens of millions of years ago, alongside so much else that time has swept away. And then, within the last century, a living one was pulled from the deep waters off the coast of Africa. Unmistakably the same creature, still swimming in the dark. It was like finding a page thought long ago burned, tucked whole and unharmed inside an old book. The deep is patient, and it keeps its secrets gently, holding on to old forms in its quiet and unlit rooms. Flowers and the creatures that visit them grew up together. When the first flowering plants appeared, they entered a world of insects, and the two began a long, slow partnership that shaped them both. A flower offered nectar and a dusting of pollen, and in return, the insect, wandering from bloom to bloom, carried that pollen onward, helping the plant to seed. Over ages, flowers became more fragrant, more colorful, more perfectly shaped to a particular guest. And the insects, in turn, were molded to fit them. It's like two dancers who have practiced together so long that neither quite remembers how to move without the other. So much of the color in our world was painted, petal by petal, by this quiet and ancient courtesy. The little bumps that rise on your arms are the ghost of a thicker coat. On a cold night, or in a moment that quietly moves you, your skin prickles and the fine hairs there stand up. In our furrier ancestors, tiny muscles at the base of each hair would puff the fur outward, trapping warmth against the body, or making the animal look a little larger to whatever was watching. We kept the old reflex long after we lost most of the fur, so now those little muscles tug on hairs far too small to matter. It's like a switch on the wall still wired to a lamp that was taken down generations ago. Your body remembers a warmth it no longer wears. Your body carries a few small tools it no longer quite needs. Tucked away where the small and large intestine meet is the appendix, a little pouch that once helped our ancestors break down a rougher, leafier diet. Now it mostly keeps a quiet reserve of helpful gut bacteria, a small, safe harbor for the tiny life that helps us digest. The same is true of wisdom teeth, a final set of molars sized for the larger jaws and coarser food of long ago, often crowded now in mouths that have grown smaller. They are like heirlooms left in a drawer, kept long after their first use was forgotten. Nothing here was designed anew, only handed down and gently repurposed. Nearly every animal makes its own vitamin C, but we cannot. Most creatures quietly manufacture it inside their own cells, all day long, without a single thought. Somewhere far back along our line, the gene that once did this job broke and was never repaired. And the same is true for our close primate cousins. It didn't much matter, because our ancestors lived among fruit and fresh leaves, taking in more than enough with every meal, so the loss simply slipped by unnoticed. It's like letting a well fall into disuse, because a clear stream already runs past the door. We carry the broken recipe still, a small reminder that life keeps whatever works and lets the rest go soft. There is a nerve in your throat that takes a long and curious detour. To reach the voice box just below the chin, you might expect it to follow the shortest path. Instead, on one side, it runs all the way down into the chest, loops beneath a large vessel near the heart, and climbs back up to where it began. This odd route is a leftover from our fish ancestors, whose bodies were once shaped so that the path was perfectly direct, back before any neck ever stretched long. In the giraffe, that very same nerve runs meters out of its way, down the great neck and back again. It's like a road that still follows the bend of a river that dried up an age ago. A body is a record of every place its kind has ever been. Woven into your own instructions are the quiet remains of ancient viruses. Long ago, certain viruses slipped their code into the cells of our ancestors, and now and then, that code was passed down to the next generation, and the next, until it became a settled part of us. Much of it lies silent, but some of it, over time, was gently put to work. One such borrowed fragment helps build the placenta, the soft tissue that shelters a growing child before it is born. It's like finding that part of the house was built from stones carried off from a much older ruin. What once arrived as an intruder became, over the ages, a thread in the weave of who we are. Evolution is not only ancient history. It is happening quietly, even tonight. In warm and hidden places, the smallest living things multiply again and again, whole generations passing in mere hours. When something threatens them, most may fall away, but a rare few happen to carry a small difference that lets them endure, and those few become the parents of all that follow. This is the same gentle process that shaped the whale and the sparrow, only sped up until we can almost watch it unfold. It's like a stream finding a new channel the very moment an old one is blocked, without hurry, without effort. Change, it turns out, is never truly finished. It is only ever resting between steps. In the span of a single human lifetime, a moth quietly changed its color. In the woodlands of England, there lived a pale speckled moth that rested unseen against light, lichen-covered bark. When soot from coal fires darkened the trees, the pale moths began to stand out to hungry birds, while the rare dark ones now hid the best. And so the dark form slowly spread across the land. Later, as the air grew clean once more, the pale moths gently returned to favor. It's like a tide of color rising and falling with the weather of the age. The living world listens closely to its surroundings and answers in its own slow, patient hand. Some creatures survive by wearing a costume they never take off. There are harmless flies patterned in the bold yellow and black of a stinging wasp, and moths whose folded wings show the wide, staring eyes of a far larger animal. None of them ever chose these disguises. Those born looking a little more like something dangerous were simply passed over a little more often. And so, over many generations, the resemblance grew sharper and truer, It's like a long game of pretend, in which only the most convincing players remain to teach the next. The living world is full of quiet bluffs, each one honed by nothing more than time and the gentle weeding of chance. On a scattering of islands far out in the sea, small birds tell a surprisingly large story. When finches long ago reached the Galapagos, they found a place with many foods and few rivals, and over generations, their descendants spread into all that open room. On one island, a beak grew stout and strong for cracking hard seeds. On another, slender and fine for teasing insects out from under bark, each shaped to the life it led. From one kind of bird came many, each a small variation on a single shared theme. It's like one simple tune carried off to distant houses and hummed a little differently in each. Given time and a little room, life fans out to fill whatever spaces it happens to find. Every dog asleep by a warm hearth tonight began, long ago, as a wolf. Somewhere in our shared past, the wolves least frightened of people started to linger at the edges of the firelight, drawn in by scraps and warmth. The calmest and friendliest among them fared best in that company, and over many generations, their bodies softened, their ears grew floppy, and their eyes learned to hold our gaze. What was once a wary hunter became a companion who now dreams at our feet. It's like a long, unhurried conversation between two kinds of creature, neither ever quite finishing the other's sentence. In shaping the dog, we were, in some quiet way, shaping ourselves as well. Not so very long ago, no grown person could drink milk. For most of our history, the body simply switched off its ability to digest milk sugar once childhood had ended, as it still does across much of the world today. Then, after people began keeping cattle, sheep, and goats, a small change appeared that let some adults go on digesting milk their whole lives. And wherever herds were kept, that change quietly spread. It arose more than once, in more than one part of the world, wherever milk became a food. It's like different villages, each unaware of the others, all deciding to leave the very same door open. Our diet has been reshaping us, gently, well within the memory of our own kind. Long before our brains grew large, our ancestors stood up and walked. For a long stretch of our story, the thing that set us apart was not a bigger head, but a different way of moving, as early relatives came down from the trees and began to travel upright across open ground. Walking on two legs freed the hands to carry, to gather, to hold a child while still moving on. The bones of the hip and the foot slowly reshaped themselves to balance a whole body over 2 feet instead of 4. It's like a tree learning, across the ages, to stand on a narrower base and still never fall. We were walkers, it seems, long before we were thinkers. Somewhere back among our ancestors, the world grew richer in color. Many mammals see in softer, simpler shades, but the primates from whom we descend gained an extra kind of light-catching cell in the eye, opening up the reds and greens we now take entirely for granted. This fuller palette may have helped them spot ripe fruit glowing among the leaves, or the tender young shoots against all that green. So the warmth of a sunset, or the deep red of an apple, is in part a gift from hungry ancestors reaching up through the branches. It's like being handed a wider set of paints partway through the making of a picture. We see the world lit up as we do because it once helped someone find their supper. In the endless dark of deep caves, some fish have quietly let go of their eyes. Where sunlight never reaches, an eye brings no gift at all, and eyes are costly things to build and to keep. And so, over long generations in the black water, the young of certain cave fish stop forming eyes altogether, the sockets closing softly over, pale skin growing where sight once was. In exchange, they often gain a keener sense of touch, tasting the faintest stir of the water around them. It's like a house slowly boarding up a window that had only ever opened onto night. What is not needed is set down without sorrow, and the body travels lighter for it. Among the smallest animals alive are some of the hardiest ever to exist. The tardigrade, a plump, eight-legged creature far too small to see, lives in mosses and puddles and the thin films of water spread across the world. When its home dries out or freezes hard, it draws in its legs, curls into a tiny grain, and lets nearly all of its life slow almost to a stop, and waits. Years may pass, and still, when the water returns, it swells and stirs and simply walks on. It's like a seed that is also, somehow, an animal, patient far beyond all reason. There is a quiet lesson tucked inside it of how much can be endured by simply becoming still. What looks like a single crust of color on a stone is often two lives living as one. A lichen, that soft gray-green patch spreading slowly across rock and bark, is not one creature, but a partnership, a fungus and an alga bound together so closely they seem a single thing. The fungus offers shelter and a firm hold, while the alga, catching sunlight, makes food enough for both of them. Together, they can live where neither could ever manage alone, on bare stone, in bitter cold, through drought and long stretches of time. It's like two travelers who agreed ages ago to share a single coat and never once thought to part. So much of life, it turns out, is not a lone struggle, but a quiet leaning of one thing upon another. No one can say for certain how many kinds of living things share the earth. We have named and described a great many, and yet whole worlds of small and hidden life remain uncounted, especially in the soil, the deep sea, and the high crowns of far forests. By careful reckoning, there are close to 9 million kinds of living creature alive today, most of them still waiting to be met. Every year, more are found, tucked into places no one had thought to look. It's like a library whose shelves run on far past the reach of the last lamp, holding countless volumes no one has yet opened. The world remains, even now, gently and endlessly larger than our knowing. And if one of tonight's facts has stayed with you, the long loop of a nerve, the dark moth resting on pale bark, or that tiny creature waiting years for rain, leave it in the comments below. I read them each morning, and they often become the seeds of journeys still to come. For now, let your breathing slow, and let's drift a little deeper. Some creatures have worn the same shape for so long they seem to have stepped outside of time. The horseshoe crab, with its smooth brown dome and its little fan of legs beneath, has crept along the seafloor for more than 400 million years, since long before the first dinosaur ever drew breath. Its body has needed so little changing that the creature crawling through the shallows tonight would be almost at home among its ancestors of ages past. Even its blood is strange and old, running a pale, cloudy blue where ours runs red. It's like a single sentence, written once, that the world simply never found any reason to rewrite. Some designs, it seems, arrive so complete that time is content to leave them gently be. There is a tree growing quietly in cities tonight, whose kind once spread its shade over the dinosaurs. The ginkgo, with its small fan-shaped leaves that turn a soft gold in autumn, is the last living member of a family that once filled the ancient world. All its near relatives slipped away over the long ages, until only this single thread remained, carried forward alone. We plant it now along our streets and in our parks, never quite realizing we are tending a survivor older than almost anything else that grows. It's like a single candle still burning from a room that went dark a very long time ago. Folded into its quiet leaves is a patience we can hardly begin to measure. In the slow rivers of one distant land lives a mammal that lays eggs. The platypus, soft-furred and paddle-tailed, with a bill much like a duck's, seems almost stitched together from spare parts, and yet it is exactly, wholly itself. It nurses its young the way other mammals do, and yet it hatches them from eggs, keeping a habit its ancestors held long ago. When it hunts in the muddy dark, it closes its eyes and reads the faint flickers of electricity given off by its prey, feeling its way through the water by a sense we do not have. It's like a letter kept from an older draft of the world, treasured rather than thrown away. Nature, it turns out, rarely tidies up as neatly as we imagine. Lift your hand for a moment in the dark, and you are holding a very old idea. Those 5 fingers, the long bones of the palm, the neat row of small joints, all follow a plan laid down in the very first creatures that ever hauled themselves onto land. The same bones, only stretched or shortened or folded, hold up the wing of a bat, the flipper of a whale, the running leg of a horse. Different lives, wildly different shapes, and yet underneath them all, the same faithful blueprint repeated again and again. It's like a single melody played on many instruments, each one sounding utterly its own. And your hand, resting now upon the blanket, is quietly one of them. Beneath the warm, shallow seas, some of the largest living things on Earth are built by animals smaller than a grain of rice. Coral reefs, those vast and colorful ridges that stretch for miles, are the slow work of countless tiny creatures called polyps, each one laying down a little cup of stone around itself. Inside their soft bodies live even smaller partners, small algae that catch the sunlight and share the food they make. Together, over centuries, they raise whole cities of limestone that shelter a great part of all the life in the sea. It's like a coral cathedral built one patient grain at a time by hands far too small to see. So much grandeur, it turns out, resting upon so much gentleness. Among the simplest of all animals is one that lives without a heart, a brain, or a single nerve. The sponge, sitting quietly on the seafloor, is little more than a soft colony of cooperating cells, drawing water in through countless tiny pores and sifting from it whatever it needs to live. It has no need to hurry, no thoughts to trouble it, only the slow and steady pull of water through its body, day after day. If you were to press a sponge gently through a fine mesh, its scattered cells would, in time, find one another and knit themselves whole again. It's like a small crowd that always remembers how to become a single body. Life, at its very beginning, asked for so wonderfully little. Older than fish, older than trees, older even than bone itself, the jellyfish still drifts through the sea. For more than 500 million years, these soft, translucent bells have pulsed through the water, opening and closing in their slow and endless rhythm. They have no brain to speak of, only a fine web of nerves spread through the body, just enough to feel the water and to move. And still they thrive, in warm seas and cold, near the surface and far below, as unhurried now as they have ever been. It's like a slow heartbeat that the ocean has never once stopped making. There is a kind of wisdom, perhaps, in needing so little to endure. The coal that once warmed so many homes was, long before, a forest. In a time even older than the dinosaurs, much of the land lay under great swamps where giant ferns and tree-tall horsetails grew thick and green. As they died and fell, they sank into the wet ground faster than they could rot, layer upon layer, pressed slowly down by all the weight gathering above. Over unthinkable stretches of time, that buried greenery hardened into the dark, shining coal we would later draw back up into the light. It's like sunlight from an ancient summer, folded away in the dark and kept for us to find. Every old hearth fire, in a way, was a forest remembering how to burn. Some friendships in nature are so old that neither friend could now live without the other. The fig and the tiny wasp that pollinates it have traveled together for tens of millions of years, each so shaped to the other that a single kind of fig tree often has its own single kind of wasp. The little wasp crawls inside the young fig to lay her eggs, and in doing so, she carries the pollen that lets the fig make its seeds. Neither could carry on alone, and so they go forward as they always have, bound quietly together. It's like two dancers who long ago forgot where one of them ends and the other begins. Some bonds, given enough time, simply soften into a single life. Some long journeys are remembered by creatures that were never once taught the way. Each year, the monarch butterfly, that small scrap of orange and black, travels thousands of miles to a warmer land it has never seen, to a grove of trees it could not possibly know. And here is the strange and lovely part. No single butterfly makes the whole round trip. Those that return in spring are the great-grandchildren of the ones that left, and yet somehow they carry the map within them. It's like a song passed down through hands that never met, sung note for note without a single rehearsal. Just how they hold that map so surely, no one has yet fully understood. And perhaps someone drifting near sleep tonight will one day be the one to find out. In one great sun-warmed corner of the world, the young are born long before they are ready. The kangaroo, the wallaby, the small quiet possum, all bring their young into the world as tiny, pink, half-formed things, no larger than a bean. Blind and barely shaped, the newborn makes a slow, astonishing climb up through its mother's fur to reach the safe, warm pouch, where it latches on and finishes its growing in shelter. What other animals do hidden away inside, these do out in the gentle open, tucked into a small pocket of skin. It's like a nest worn close against the body, carried everywhere it goes. There is more than one way, it seems, to hold a small life safely through its beginning. Sometimes a trait that troubles the body also quietly stands guard over it. In parts of the world where a certain fever once took many lives, a small change in the blood arose that offered a curious kind of shelter. Those who carry a single copy of it are far better protected from that old sickness, even as the trait asks something of them in return. It is not quite a flaw and not quite a gift, but a gentle balance struck over many generations, a quiet bargain between two burdens. It's like a door that keeps out one cold wind by letting in a softer one. The body, over long time, learns to weigh its troubles carefully and to keep whatever shelters more than it costs. Very early in life, before any of us is quite ourselves, we all look strangely alike. In the first quiet days of growing, the embryo of a person and the embryo of a fish or a bird pass through shapes so similar you would struggle to tell them apart. There are little folds along what will become the neck, faint echoes of an older body plan, that in a fish become gills, and in us become the small parts of the throat and ear. We each begin, in a sense, by retracing a few soft steps our distant ancestors once took. It's like every new life opening on the very same page before slowly turning to its own. Deep beneath all our differences lies a shared and gentle beginning. One small creature has found a way to stay young for the whole of its life. The axolotl, a pale and softly smiling salamander from the waters of a single far-off lake, never quite grows up. Most of its kind would, in time, lose their feathery gills and leave the water for the land. But the axolotl keeps its childhood shape forever, breathing through those soft frills all its days. And should it lose a limb, it can grow the whole thing back, bone and muscle and all, as though beginning fresh. It's like a story content to linger happily in its opening chapter, never once rushing toward the end. Some lives, it seems, are quite happy to remain gently unfinished. Among the seahorses, it is the father who carries the young into the world. The mother places her eggs into a small pouch on the father's belly, and there he holds them, warm and safe, until they are ready to be born. When their time finally comes, he rocks and stirs until the tiny curled seahorses spill out into the water, whole and ready to drift away. It is a quiet reversal of what we might expect, and yet it is worn as easily as any other way of caring for a life. It's like a lantern simply passed to the other hand, the light itself unchanged. Nature keeps no single rule for who shall carry the hope of the next small generation. Deep beneath the dry ground lives a small wrinkled creature that seems to have quietly forgotten how to grow old. The naked mole rat, pink and nearly blind, spends its whole life in dark and winding tunnels. And there it lives, many times longer than a creature its size ever should. It shows little of the wear that age brings to others, and it rarely falls to the illnesses we might expect. Careful minds still study it gently, hoping to learn the secret it keeps folded away in its small, patient body. It's like a candle that burns far into the night without seeming to shrink at all. There are corners of life still holding quiet answers we have yet to hear. And if one of these quiet wonders has stayed with you tonight, the egg-laying mammal, the butterfly that inherits a map, or the little tree older than almost anything that grows, you're always welcome to leave it in the comments below. I look them over in the stillness of each morning, and more often than not, a single word from you becomes the beginning of another journey. For now, let your thoughts grow soft, and let's drift a little deeper still. The octopus keeps its thinking spread out through its arms. We tend to imagine that thought lives in one place, tucked neatly behind the eyes. But the octopus never settled on that arrangement. It does have a central brain, yet more than half of its nerve cells are scattered along its 8 soft arms, so that each arm can feel, taste, and even decide a little on its own. An arm can reach into a crevice and explore it, while the rest of the animal attends to something else entirely. It's a bit like a mind poured out into many gentle hands, each one quietly curious. No one can yet say what it truly feels like to think with your whole body at once. And perhaps someone drifting towards sleep tonight will one day be the one to wonder their way toward the answer. A small jellyfish has found a way to grow young again. Most creatures move in one direction through their lives, from beginning to end. But this pale drifting bell, no larger than a fingernail, can turn its own clock backward. When it is injured or worn or simply running low on time, its body can dissolve its adult form and settle back down as the tiny stalk it once was, beginning the whole slow climb of its life over again. It is not truly deathless, for the sea is full of hazards. Yet in calm waters, it can repeat this quiet return more than once. It's like a melody that upon reaching its final note, softly folds back to the very first. Some lives, it seems, are written as circles rather than straight lines. The great whales once wore teeth and then gently traded them away. The largest of them now feed without a single tooth in their mouths, straining tiny creatures from the water through long fringed plates instead. Those plates, called baleen, are not bone at all, but the very same soft material as your own fingernails, hanging in rows like a fine comb. Far back among their ancestors were toothed hunters, and somewhere along the way, the teeth grew small, then vanished, and the sieve took their place. It's like a fisherman quietly setting down his spear and lifting a net woven of hair instead. Even the way a creature takes its supper can be slowly rewritten across the long patience of time. Some fish have learned to speak and see the world in faint pulses of electricity. In the murky rivers where light barely reaches, certain fish carry an organ built from what were once ordinary muscles, coaxed over ages into cells that store and release a small charge. With it, they sense the shapes around them, feel out a hidden meal, and send soft signals to one another through the dark water. What began as tissue meant only for movement was gently repurposed into a whole new sense. It's like an old lantern rewired to hum a quiet tune instead of shining. Nature rarely invents from nothing. It prefers to borrow and softly make things over. Living light has been invented again and again, all across the tree of life. Deep in the sea and in a few damp corners of the land, countless creatures glow with the cool and gentle light of their own making. And remarkably, they did not inherit this gift from one shared ancestor. Fireflies, certain fungi, jellyfish, and a great host of deep-sea fish each arrived at the trick on their own, mixing a small molecule with a helper that lets it release its energy as light rather than heat. It's like many separate travelers, unknown to one another, each deciding to carry a candle into the same dark room. The living world keeps rediscovering the same soft ideas, as though they were always waiting to be found. Venom, too, has been discovered many separate times. We tend to picture it as the mark of snakes alone, yet it has arisen again and again in creatures that share no recent path, in spiders and jellyfish, in certain shrews and lizards, even in one gentle-looking mammal with a spur on its hind leg. Each built its own recipe from ordinary spit or ordinary proteins, slowly turned toward a sharper purpose. It's like several villages, far apart and never speaking, each stumbling on the same way to brew a bitter tea. When a solution works well enough, life tends to arrive at it more than once, quietly and without conference. In the coldest seas on Earth, some fish carry their own antifreeze. Around the frozen edges of the far south, the water grows so cold that a body ought to seize and stiffen, its blood turning to needles of ice. Yet certain fish drift there untroubled, because their blood carries small proteins that fasten themselves to any ice crystal that tries to form and gently stop it from growing. So the fish stays soft and liquid in water, cold enough to still almost anything else. It's like a quiet hand smoothing over frost before it can ever spread across a window. Life finds ways to be at home even in the places that seem to forbid it most. On a few islands far out in the Southern Ocean lives a reptile with a faint third eye. The tuatara looks much like a lizard, though it belongs to an older branch all its own, one that has changed little since the days when far larger reptiles walked the world. Beneath the skin on the top of its head, when young, it carries a small patch sensitive to light, a simple eye of a kind that many ancient animals once had. Over time, it grows over and quiets, but for a while, it drinks in the difference between day and dark. It's like a skylight left in the roof of a very old house, dim now, but never quite bricked away. A living thing can carry a window into a world long past and hardly seem to notice. The pangolin wears armor, though it is a warm and gentle mammal underneath. Covered head to tail in overlapping scales, it looks for all the world like something reptilian, and when frightened, it simply rolls into a quiet ball. Yet those scales are not the scales of any lizard. They are made of the same soft material as hair and nails, grown thick and hard into plates. A shy insect eater arrived, on its own path, at a defense that reptiles found long before. It's like two neighbors choosing the very same coat without ever glimpsing each other's wardrobe. The look of a thing can travel far from the family it was born into. There's a small fish today that still walks upon the mud. In the warm, tangled edges of tropical shores, the mud skipper leaves the water entirely, propping itself up on stout little fins and pulling its body across the wet ground. It breathes partly through its damp skin and carries a small store of water in its gills, and it can spend long stretches out in the open air. It is not our ancestor, only a living echo, showing in the present what those first slow steps onto land might once have looked like. It's like watching a very old story, quietly performed again in miniature, on a stage of soft brown mud. The past is not always behind us. Sometimes it is simply resting nearby. The lungfish can breathe the open air and sleep away a drought. In rivers that shrink to cracked mud under a long dry season, this ancient fish does something most fish never could. It gulps air into a simple lung, and when the water vanishes altogether, it burrows down, wraps itself in a cocoon of its own making, and slows its whole body to the faintest flicker of life. There it waits, sometimes for many months, until the rains return and gently wake it. It's like a small ember banked beneath the ashes, holding just enough warmth to catch again. Patience, in some lives, is not a virtue, but a way of staying alive. A turtle's shell is not a house it climbed into, but its own bones grown wide. It is easy to imagine the shell as a shield the animal carries from outside, yet it is built from the turtle's own ribs and spine, flattened and fused and spread into a broad protective dome. This is why a turtle can never leave its shell, for it would be leaving its very skeleton behind. Long ago, the ribs of its ancestors began to broaden, little by little, until they closed over the back like a slow stone roof. It's like a body quietly folding its own frame into a shelter it will never need to set down. Home, for some creatures, is simply another word for self. The corn in the field was shaped gently by the hands of ancient farmers. Thousands of years ago, in the warm valleys of the Americas, there grew a scraggly grass with only a few hard kernels on a thin spike. Nothing like the full golden ears we know. People, choosing season after season the plants that please them most, slowly coax that modest grass into something new, until the small spike became the heavy, sweet ear it is today. It's like a sentence rewritten 1,000 times by patient hands, until it finally reads the way they hoped. Evolution does not always wait for wildness. Sometimes it walks quietly beside us in a garden. The star-nosed mole feels its way through the world with a small pink star. Living in dark, wet tunnels where eyes are of little use, it wears a ring of soft, fleshy rays around its snout, more than a score of them, twitching and touching everything it passes. Those rays are crowded with more feeling than almost any other patch of skin in the animal world, letting the mole map its surroundings by touch alone, faster than we could ever look. It's like reading a whole room in a single gentle brush of the fingertips. When one door of the senses closes, life has a way of throwing another quietly open. The sloth carries a small green garden upon its back, moving so slowly through the treetops that it seems half asleep. The sloth grows a faint film of algae in the grooves of its long, shaggy fur, tinting its coat a soft, mossy green. That green helps it melt into the leaves, hidden from sharp eyes above, and in return, the algae find a safe and sunlit place to live. Two lives, one slow and furred, one small and green, quietly sharing a single roof. It's like a traveler so unhurried that wildflowers begin to bloom along the hem of his coat. Even stillness, it turns out, can become a home for something else. Two very different creatures both learn to see the world with sound. The bat, wheeling through the night air, and the dolphin gliding through dim water share almost nothing in their family history. And yet, both send out a stream of clicks and listen for the echoes that return, building a picture of the dark from sound alone. Deep in the workings of their bodies, even some of the very same tiny changes arose in each, quite separately, to make this listening keen. It's like two composers in distant lands writing, note for note, a strikingly similar song. When the world sets the same puzzle twice, life will sometimes hand back the very same answer. Somewhere within you flows a faint memory of the ancient sea. The salty warmth of your blood, the balance of minerals it carries, is thought by many to echo the mild seawater in which our earliest ancestors first stirred. When those creatures crept slowly onto the land, in a sense they carried a small portion of the ocean along inside them, sealed away in vessels and cells, and their descendants have kept it ever since. So as you lie here, breathing slow, a quiet tide still moves within you, older than any shore. It's like a single drop of a vanished sea, tucked safe inside a body that walks on dry ground. You are, in this small way, still gently connected to where everything began. The horseshoe crab has kept its shape while whole worlds have come and gone. Crawling along shallow sandy bottoms with its smooth helmet of a shell and its long slender tail, it looks almost exactly as its kind did in seas far older than the dinosaurs, older even than most trees. Its blood is a pale, gentle blue, colored by copper rather than iron, and it stirs so faithfully to any hint of trouble that we have long treated it with quiet care. It's like an old letter, written in an ancient hand, that somehow still arrives fresh in the morning post. Some designs, once settled, seem content to simply stay, watching the ages drift softly by. In the coldest waters, at the very bottom of the world, swims a fish with blood as clear as glass. Nearly every animal with a backbone carries blood-tinted red, colored by an iron-rich substance called hemoglobin that ferries oxygen through the body. But the ice fish of the Antarctic gave that up entirely. In seas so cold and so rich in dissolved oxygen, it manages with a larger heart, wider vessels, and plasma that carries oxygen quietly on its own. No red at all. It's like a small river running colorless beneath a ceiling of ice. Sometimes, it seems, letting something go can be its own quiet way of carrying on. Deep in the water off the eastern coast of Africa lives a fish that everyone once thought was long gone. The coelacanth was known only from stones, a heavy lobe-finned creature pressed into rock. And for the longest time, scientists believed its kind had vanished with the dinosaurs. Then, in 1938, a living one turned up in a fisherman's net, breathing and slow, exactly as its ancestors had been countless ages before. Its thick, fleshy fins move in a slow, deliberate sway, echoing the very limbs that would one day carry life ashore. It's like finding, tucked in an attic, a lamp still faintly glowing after 100 quiet years. Now and then, the world keeps something we were sure it had set down. The penguin gave up the sky in order to master the sea. Its ancestors could fly, lifting into the air on wings like any other bird. But somewhere along the slow road of time, a different bargain was struck. Those wings grew short and stiff and dense, no longer good for air, but wonderful for water. And the penguin became a swimmer so graceful it seems to fly beneath the waves instead. Its bones grew heavier too, trading the hollow lightness of flight for the gift of sinking easily into the deep. It's like a bird that folded up its road through the clouds and unrolled a smoother one through the cold blue water. There is more than one sky, life seems to whisper, and more than one way to move through the world. The camel was shaped, gently and over long ages, by the dry patience of the desert. We often imagine that its hump is a hidden pouch of water, but the truth is softer and stranger. That hump is a storehouse of fat, a private reserve of food and energy the animal can draw upon when the land offers nothing. And its body is full of quieter gifts besides. Long lashes screen the blowing sand, narrow nostrils close against it, and its blood holds steady through heat that would trouble almost anything else. It's like a traveler who packed everything needed for the crossing directly into the fabric of their own body. The harsher the road, it turns out, the more inventive life becomes in walking it. A bird breathes in a way no mammal ever has, moving air in a single steady direction. When you or I take a breath, the air rushes in and then back out along the same path. And for a moment, the lungs hold a mixture of the old and the new. But a bird's body threads air through a series of soft internal sacs, so that fresh air flows through the lungs in one smooth, unbroken current, coming and going at once. This is part of how the smallest birds can beat their wings for hours, and how some fly high over the tallest mountains without faltering. It's like a quiet stream that only ever runs one way, always clear, never doubling back. Even something as ordinary as a breath can be built in more ways than we would ever guess. The very air you are breathing now was, in a way, exhaled by creatures far too small to see. Long, long ago, the sky held almost no oxygen at all. and the world would have been unbreathable to us. Then tiny drifting lives in the ancient seas, simple green cells gathering sunlight, began releasing oxygen as a kind of quiet leftover, breath after invisible breath, for hundreds of millions of years. Slowly, the seas filled, and then the air, until at last the sky itself was changed and larger, hungrier lives like ours became possible. It's like countless small candles, each too faint to notice, together lighting a whole vast room. Every calm breath that fills you tonight is a gift handed down from the smallest gardeners that ever lived. Beneath the warm forest of the Americas, tiny ants tend gardens they cannot eat. Leafcutter ants stream along the branches, snipping green pieces far larger than themselves and carrying them home in a slow, patient river of leaves. But they don't feed on the leaves at all. Deep underground, they press that greenery into soft beds where a particular fungus grows. And it is this fungus, carefully weeded and cleaned and nurtured, that feeds the whole colony. It's like a village of small farmers who never taste the harvest, tending instead a single crop that feeds them all in return. Life discovered farming, it seems, many millions of years before we ever picked up a hoe. The comb jelly may have invented the nerve entirely on its own, drifting through the sea like a small shimmering lantern, rippling with rows of tiny beating combs. It seems simple, and yet it carries a delicate web of nerves that lets it sense and move. What surprises those who study it is that this web may have arisen quite separately from the nerves in almost every other animal, built from different pieces toward the same quiet purpose. It's like two villages on opposite shores of a wide sea, each dreaming up the very same tool without ever meeting. No one yet knows for certain how many times the spark of a nervous system first flickered into being. Perhaps someone drifting towards sleep to a voice like this one will, one day, be the person who finds the answer. The shape of a crab has been arrived at again and again by creatures that were never crabs to begin with. Along the world's shorelines, different lineages of shelled animals, starting from quite different bodies, have slowly rounded themselves into that same broad, flattened, sidewalking form, so often that scientists gave the pattern its own gentle name. Something about that low, armored shape, tucked and compact and easy to scuttle sideways, seems to suit the tide-washed edges of the sea especially well. It's like several different rivers, winding through different valleys, all settling at last into the very same calm shape of pool. When a design works quietly well, the living world seems happy to reach for it more than once. In the inner corner of your own eye rests the small remnant of a lost third eyelid. Look closely in a mirror sometime, in no hurry at all, and you'll find a little pink fold nestled where the lids meet near your nose. In many animals, that fold is a whole clear eyelid of its own, sweeping sideways across the eye to clean and shield it, the way a bird or a cat can veil its gaze in an instant. In us, it has dwindled to a soft, quiet crescent that no longer moves, a keepsake left behind by ancestors who once had need of it. It's like a doorway bricked gently shut, its outline still visible in the wall. You carry, right there beside your sight, a small souvenir of a much older way of seeing. A salamander can grow back a limb it has lost, whole and working, as if from nothing. Where most creatures can only heal a wound over with a scar, this small amphibian does something far more patient and strange. The cells near the injury quietly step backward in time, becoming young and unspecialized again. And then, following some deep, remembered plan, they rebuild the bone, the muscle, the nerves, the skin, a new limb shaped just like the old. It's like a candle relighting itself, flame and wick and glow returning together out of the dark. How the body keeps that ancient blueprint so perfectly, ready to be read again, is a wonder that still draws quiet minds to look closer. The mantis shrimp sees the world through eyes richer than our own. Tucked into the coral of warm, shallow seas, this small and brilliantly colored creature carries eyes that move each on their own little stalk, drinking in far more kinds of light than we can. Where our sight is built from 3 sorts of color catchers, the mantis shrimp may hold a dozen or more, tuned to shades and even to hidden qualities of light our eyes can never reach. It's like a painter given a box of colors the rest of us have simply never been shown. There are ways of seeing the ordinary world, it turns out, that lie forever, just beyond our own gentle window. When a great whale dies, its slow fall to the seafloor becomes a feast that lasts for years. Sinking softly through the dark, the body comes to rest on the deep cold bottom, far from any sunlight. And there it begins a long, unhurried gift. First come the scavengers of the deep, then smaller and smaller lives, and at last, even certain quiet bacteria, so that a single whale can nourish a whole gathering of creatures for decades in the endless night. It's like a fallen forest tree that becomes, in its stillness, a slow, warm home for 1,000 smaller lives. Even an ending, down in that gentle dark, can turn quietly into the beginning of so much else. Far down where the sunlight never reaches, some fish keep their partners close for life in the strangest of ways. In the deep sea, mates can be terribly hard to find, drifting alone through miles of cold water with almost no chance of meeting. And so in certain anglerfish, when a small male at last finds a female, he simply holds on and never lets go, their 2 bodies slowly joining until he becomes a lasting, faithful part of her own. It's like 2 travelers lost in an endless dark who, once they clasp hands, decide never again to be apart. In a world that wide and quiet, some solutions to loneliness are tender in their own peculiar way. High on the roof of the world, whole peoples have gently reshaped themselves to breathe the thin mountain air. Where the land climbs so high that the oxygen grows sparse, a lowlander arriving feels the weight of every step. Yet those who have lived on the great plateaus for many long generations carry small, quiet changes in their bodies, ways of drawing more from each breath, of moving oxygen more freely, so that the thin air feels to them like home. It's like lungs and blood learning, over the slow turning of centuries, to sip more deeply from a nearly empty cup. Even now, in these gentle ways, our own kind is still quietly being shaped by the places we choose to live. The octopus tastes the world with its arms as it goes, reaching softly into every crevice of the reef. Each of its supple arms is lined with rows of sensitive suckers that can feel and taste at the very same moment, so that to touch a thing is also, for the octopus, to know its flavor. It doesn't need to bring a morsel to any mouth to understand it. The knowing happens right there at the fingertips, spread out across its whole reaching body. It's like a hand that could read the entire story of a thing just by resting gently upon it. To live inside such a body must be to feel the world in a way we can only softly imagine. The tree of life is far bushier and stranger than a single climbing line. We sometimes picture living things arranged in a tidy ladder, each rung a little higher than the last, with ourselves perched somewhere near the top. But the truth is gentler and more tangled than that. Every creature alive today, from the drifting jelly to the towering redwood to the small warm animal reading its own inner clock, sits at the very tip of its own long branch, each one just as thoroughly arrived, each one shaped by the same unhurried ages. It's like a vast old tree whose every outermost twig is reaching the light at exactly this same moment. None of us is the destination, and all of us are quietly, still on our way. Powered flight has come to the world 4 separate times, and the last to master it were the bats. The insects rose into the air first, ages ago, and then the great flying reptiles, and then the birds with their light and feathered wings. But the bats did something none of the others had tried. They stretched a thin, living membrane of skin between impossibly long fingers, turning a whole hand into a wing. Each time a bat wheels through the dusk, it is flying on what are, in truth, webbed and elongated fingers spread wide against the dark. It's like a swimmer's hand grown so large and supple that it could hold the air itself. The sky, it seems, has more than one door, and life keeps quietly finding its own way through. The giant panda holds its bamboo with a thumb that is not really a thumb at all. A panda spends its slow days stripping and chewing bamboo, and to do that, it needs a way to grip each stalk. But its true thumb had long since been given over to walking, laid alongside the other toes of its paw. So evolution reached instead for something close at hand. A small bone of the wrist, gently enlarged over the ages into a stubby 6th digit that serves as a clumsy but faithful thumb. It's like a carpenter who, missing the proper tool, wraps a spare scrap of wood into something that will do the job. Nature rarely builds from a blank page. More often, it borrows whatever happens to lie nearest. The milk that feeds every young mammal began as something closer to sweat. Long before there were any true mammals, small warm-blooded creatures may have kept their soft, leathery eggs from drying out with fluid that seeped from glands in their skin. Over unhurried generations, that simple dampness grew richer, filling with nourishment and quiet protection, until it became milk. And the glands that made it became the mammary glands that give our whole kind its name. It's like a spring that once merely moistened the ground, slowly learning to give sweet, sustaining water. Every nursing creature in the night, every drop of milk, traces back to that ancient, gentle seeping. Reach up for a moment in the dark and rest your fingers on the back of your neck. Beneath the skin, there are 7 small bones, stacked one upon another. And here lies a quiet wonder. The towering giraffe carries exactly the same number. Nearly every mammal, from the tiny mouse to the great whale to the long-necked giraffe, has just 7 bones in its neck. The giraffe never added more. It simply let each of those 7 stretch to a marvelous length. It's like 7 short beads on a string, drawn slowly out until the necklace reaches the very tops of the trees. The same plan, gently rescaled, runs through creatures that could hardly look more different from one another. The eye of an octopus is, in one small way, wired more sensibly than your own. Our eyes and theirs both arrived at the very same clever camera design, and yet ours carries a little flaw the octopus does not share. In our eyes, the nerves lie in front of the light-sensing layer and must plunge back through it, leaving a small blind spot where they pass. In the octopus eye, those nerves run tidally behind the sensing cells, so no such gap exists at all. It's like two houses built to the same plan, where only one thought to tuck its wiring neatly out of sight. There is no perfect design among living things, only many good enough ones, each still carrying the marks of how it came to be. On opposite sides of the world, life has quietly sculpted the very same animals twice over. In the forests of the north, there were wolves and gliding squirrels and small burrowing moles. And in old Australia, long cut off by the sea, the pouched mammals shaped their own wolf, their own glider, their own mole, each one strikingly like its distant twin, though separated by ages and oceans. The vanished thylacine wore the long, lean face of a wolf it was never truly related to. It's like two painters in far-apart towns, given the same wide landscape, arriving at almost the same picture. When the way of life is the same, the shape that answers it so often is too. Long before anything truly flew, many creatures had already learned to fall with grace. All across the tree of life, animals have hit upon the same soft trick of stretching skin into a sail and gliding gently from tree to tree. There are gliding squirrels and gliding possums, lizards that spread their long ribs like fans, frogs that parachute on webbed feet, even snakes that flatten their bodies and ripple slowly through the open air. It's like the same quiet idea whispered, quite separately, into a dozen different ears. Falling slowly, it turns out, is a door that many lineages have opened all on their own. The elephant's trunk is a nose, and a hand grown into a single limb. Most animals smell with the nose and grasp with paw or mouth. But the elephant folded both of these jobs into one marvelous instrument. Its trunk holds no bone at all, woven instead from many thousands of small muscles, so supple that it can uproot a whole tree or lift a single blade of grass, all while drawing in the sense of the world. It's like a river of muscle that can be both mighty and impossibly tender. Out of a simple upper lip and a nose, the slow patience of time has coaxed one of the most versatile tools in all of nature. The woodpecker carries its own soft cushion against a lifetime of blows, hammering its beak into hard wood many times each second. A bird might seem certain to rattle its own skull to pieces, yet over long ages the woodpecker gained a head built to soak up the shock, and a tongue so remarkably long that it wraps up and around the back of the skull, cradling the brain like a gentle inner belt. It's like a helmet and a pillow grown quietly on the inside. Every steady knock against the tree is answered, unseen, by an ancient tenderness. In still ponds and damp cushions of moss lives a tiny creature that seems to have set romance aside entirely. The bdelloid rotifers, each smaller than a speck of dust, are all of them female, and they have carried on for tens of millions of years without ever once mating. Most life that gives up on sex soon withers and fades, yet these little ones flourish, in part by borrowing stray pieces of genetic material from the bacteria, fungi, and plants around them, patching new abilities quietly into themselves. It's like a traveler who mends her coat with scraps gathered from every road she has walked. Just how they have thrived so long against the usual rules, no one can yet fully say. And perhaps someone drifting towards sleep tonight will one day be the one to understand. There is a small sea slug that feeds on sunlight, much as a leaf does. Grazing on green algae along the shallow sea floor, this gentle creature does not simply swallow and digest its meal. It keeps the tiny green machinery of the algae, the very parts that catch the light, alive and working inside its own body, so that afterward it can rest in the sun and be quietly nourished by the glow, half animal and half garden. It's like a creature that swallowed a little piece of the meadow and slowly learned to bloom. The line we imagine between the plant and the animal turns out to be far softer than we ever thought. When wild animals grow tame, their bodies begin to change in ways no one ever asked for. In one long and patient study, foxes were bred for gentleness alone, chosen simply for staying calm in the presence of people. Yet within only a few generations, these tamer foxes started, all on their own, to show floppy ears, patches of white fur, curling tails, and softer, rounder faces. It seems the very changes that quiet an animal's fear are tied, by some hidden thread, to the making of its coat and its features. It's like loosening a single knot and watching a whole pattern gently rearrange itself. Tameness, it turns out, arrives wearing a face all its own. The inner warmth we so take for granted was kindled in this world more than once. To hold a steady heat inside the body, whatever the weather may be outside, is a costly and remarkable thing, asking a great deal of food to keep the small fire lit. Yet the mammals found their way to it, and the birds found their way to it quite separately, each lineage slowly turning up its own inner flame along a different path. It's like two households, tucked in two distant valleys, each discovering on its own how to keep a hearth burning through the long winter. The comfort of a warm body on a cold night is an old invention, made and then made again. The lungs that fill your chest and the small float inside a fish are two branches of a single idea. In many fish, there is a swim bladder, a gas-filled pouch that lets them hang weightless in the water, rising or sinking gently as they please. Long ago, both of these things, the lung and the bladder, sprang from the same simple pocket budding off the ancient gut, one lineage using it to breathe the open air, another to master the art of floating. It's like a single spare room in an old house that one family turned into a kitchen and another into a quiet study. The same beginning, followed far enough, arrives at wonderfully different ends. A slime mold can find its way through a maze without a single nerve to think with. Neither quite animal, nor plant, nor fungus. This strange living slick spreads across the forest floor as one great creeping cell. Place food at the far corners of a maze, and the slime mold will slowly flow along every passage, then draw itself back from the dead ends until only the shortest path between the meals remains, laid out like a softly glowing map. It's like a riddle answered not by a mind, but by the patient reaching of the body itself. Some kinds of knowing, it seems, need no brain at all. The wide grasslands and the herds that wander them shaped one another, blade by patient blade. Grasses face a peculiar trouble, for they are forever being eaten down. So over long ages, they learn to grow from the base rather than the tip, so that being cropped only stirs them to rise again. And they lace their leaves with tiny grains of grit that slowly wear teeth away. In answer, the grazers grew taller teeth, ever-growing teeth, just to keep pace. It's like two old dancers who have practiced together so long that each small step summons its partner's reply. The meadow and the mouths that feed on it grew up hand in hand. The koala presses fingerprints into the world almost exactly like our own. Look closely at the pad of a koala's finger, and you find the same looping ridges we carry, so alike that they could easily be mistaken for a person's. Yet the koala is no near cousin of ours. This quiet match arose entirely on its own, most likely to help small, careful hands grip the branches and judge a leaf's ripeness by touch. It's like two distant families, unknown to each other, choosing the very same secret signature. The plain old problem of holding on gently has been answered twice, in the very same fine and hidden lines. Just as flight has been invented over and over, so too has it been quietly surrendered. On islands and open plains where danger was scarce and food lay close to the ground, bird after bird let the sky go, for wings are costly things to carry and to feed. The ostrich, the emu, the gentle kiwi asleep in its burrow, each descends from ancestors that once flew, and then, over long and peaceful ages, set flight softly aside. It's like travelers who, finding a valley kind and safe, fold away the maps they no longer need. What is gained is not always more. Sometimes it is simply the freedom to let a thing go. The cuttlefish paints itself to match a world it may not even see in color. Across its skin lie many thousands of tiny bags of pigment that it can open and close in an instant, letting it melt into sand or stone, or ripple with slow-moving bands of light. And here lies the quiet riddle. The cuttlefish's eyes appear to see only in shades of gray, and yet, somehow, it matches the very hues around it, perhaps sensing the colors through the skin itself. It's like an artist working in the dark who still, somehow, chooses precisely the right shade. The body, it seems, holds ways of knowing that reach beyond the eyes. A snake can swallow a meal far larger than its own head. With no limbs to hold or tear its food apart, the snake took another road entirely, reshaping the very bones of its skull. Its jaws are not fused at the front as ours are, but joined by a stretchy band, so the two halves can spread apart and walk forward over the prey, drawing it slowly and steadily inward. It's like a pair of gates that can open wider than the very wall that holds them. From the loss of one ability, the loss of legs, grew the strange and patient mastery of another. Bees tell one another where to find the flowers by dancing in the dark. Returning to the crowded hive, a bee that has found a rich patch of blossoms performs a small waggling run across the comb, and the angle of her dance points the way toward the sun, while its length tells just how far the others must evolve. The nautilus looks out at the sea through an eye that has no lens at all. Most eyes we know of, our own included, gather light through a clear, curved lens that bends it into a sharp picture. But the nautilus, an ancient relative of the octopus that still drifts inside a coiled and chambered shell, kept a simpler design from a far older time. Its eye is little more than a hollow cup of light-sensitive cells with a tiny opening at the front, working just like the pinhole cameras children make from a darkened box. It's like peering out at the whole wide ocean through a single small keyhole. The picture it sees is dim and soft around the edges, and yet, for a life spent gliding slowly through the deep, that gentle blur has been enough for hundreds of millions of years. The gecko walks up a pane of smooth glass as easily as across the floor. There is no glue on its feet, no hook or suction cup, nothing you could ever feel with a fingertip. Instead, each toe is covered in millions of hairs finer than anything the eye can see. And each of those hairs splits again into hundreds of even smaller tips, until the foot is meeting the wall across a countless number of tiny points. At that scale, a faint attraction called the van der Waals force, the same quiet pull that draws all matter gently toward itself, becomes strong enough to hold the whole small body in place. It's like being carried by the softest handshake in the world, repeated a billion times over. And so a creature can walk calmly up a wall simply by trusting a force too faint for us to ever feel. The chameleon aims each of its two eyes in a different direction at once. While one eye searches the branches above, the other can watch the ground below, giving the creature a slow and careful view of nearly everything around it. And when a small insect wanders near, both eyes swing forward together to measure the distance, and then the tongue is loosed, longer than the whole body, and faster than we can easily follow, striking out and drawing the meal back in a fraction of a single second. It's like a coiled spring kept patiently at rest until the one right moment arrives. In a creature that moves so slowly and so gently through its days, it is strange and lovely to find such sudden, hidden quickness. The hummingbird can hang in the empty air and even fly backward. No other bird can truly do this. Where most wings only push downward, the hummingbird's wings sweep in a smooth figure of 8, gaining lift on the forward stroke and the backward one alike, beating so quickly they blur into a soft hum. To feed this tireless motion, its heart may race more than 1,000 times a minute, and it sips deeply from flowers shaped over long ages to fit its slender bill and no other. It's like a tiny living key turning in a lock made only for it. Flower and bird have leaned toward one another for so long that each now carries the shape of the other's need. The male pufferfish carves great circles in the sand to win a mate. Along the sea floor off the coast of Japan, a fish no longer than your hand spends days swimming patiently on its side, plowing valleys and ridges into the sand, until a wide and perfect flower-like pattern spreads across the ocean floor, far larger than the little architect himself. I'll admit, the first time I saw a photograph of one of these, I could hardly believe an animal had made it, and not a human hand. He carries broken shells and grains to decorate the ridges, and the fine pattern gathers the currents gently toward the center, where the eggs will one day rest. It's like a sand drawing offered up to the sea. When the tides erase it, he simply begins again. The archerfish knocks insects from the air with a shot of water. Resting just below the surface, it spies a small creature perched on a leaf overhead, takes careful aim, and fires a tight jet from its mouth strong enough to send the prey tumbling down to the waiting water. What makes this harder than it sounds is that light bends as it passes from air into water, so the insect is never quite where it appears to be. And yet the fish corrects for that bending and rarely misses. It's like throwing a stone at a reflection and somehow striking the real thing. A small mind, it turns out, can quietly solve a puzzle that would trouble many a larger one. The dung beetle finds its way by the light of the stars. On a clear night, this small and humble creature rolls its little ball in a straight and steady line. And if the sky is hidden, it wanders in confused circles instead. Careful study has shown that it steers not by any single star, but by the pale band of the Milky Way itself, the soft glow of our own galaxy stretched across the dark. It's like a tiny traveler taking its heading from the whole of the night sky at once. And those same distant stars are wheeling slowly above the roof over your head right now, keeping their old and patient watch while you rest. The wood frog freezes almost solid each winter and wakes again in spring. When the cold comes, this small northern frog does not flee it or burrow deep below the frost. Instead, it lets the ice creep inward until much of the water in its body has turned to crystal, its heart slowing and finally growing still, while the sugar it floods into its cells keeps them from being torn apart. For weeks or months, it lies there, hard and quiet as a stone, neither quite living nor gone. It's like a small green candle whose flame has been carefully cupped against the wind. And then, when the thaw returns, the heart stirs, the blood flows once more, and the frog hops away as though it had only been sleeping. The Greenland shark may swim through 4 centuries of cold and dark. In the icy waters of the far north, where life runs slow, this great shark moves at little more than a gentle drift and grows perhaps a single finger's width longer each year. Because it lives so slowly, it also lives astonishingly long. And the oldest among them may have been born before many of the cities we know today, quietly outlasting whole ages of human history. It's like a slow gray shadow gliding on beneath the surface of the centuries. There is a certain peace in a creature so unhurried that time itself seems to lose its grip. The bristlecone pine holds on to life for nearly 5,000 years. High on cold and windswept mountain slopes, where the soil is thin and the growing season brief, these gnarled and twisted trees ask almost nothing of the world, and so are given a very long time in it. They grow so slowly that their wood turns dense and hard, resisting rot and insect alike. And a single tree may have been a small seedling when the first great pyramids were still new. It's like a living thread stretched taut across the whole of recorded history. Some of them were already ancient when the words we still read tonight were first being written down. The bar-tailed godwit crosses an entire ocean without landing once. Each year, this modest shorebird lifts off from the northern edge of the world and flies south over open water, day and night without pause, for more than a week, covering many thousands of kilometers before its feet touch land again. Before it leaves, it feeds until its body is heavy with fuel and its stomach shrinks away to make room, until the bird becomes little more than wings and will. It's like setting sail across a sea with no islands and no harbor, trusting the far shore is truly there. It asks us to imagine a kind of endurance that needs no rest and no reward but arrival. The frigate bird sleeps on the wing, high above the open sea. This great ocean-going bird may stay aloft for weeks at a time, far from any place to land, and yet it must rest as all living things must. And so it sleeps in the air, catching brief moments of slumber while it glides on the rising currents, sometimes resting only half its brain at once, while the other half keeps a quiet watch. It's like a sailor dozing at the wheel, while the ship holds steady on a following wind. Just how it drifts so long between waking and sleep without ever falling is a gentle riddle we have only begun to answer. The clownfish can quietly change from male to female. Among the waving arms of a single sea anemone lives a small family of these bright fish, led by one large female and her mate. Should the female be lost, her partner does not seek another home, but slowly changes into a female himself, growing larger to take her place, while a younger fish rises to become the new male beside him. It's like a household that gently rearranges itself rather than scatter to the four winds. In these warm and crowded waters, being able to shift what you are has become a quiet way of holding a family together. The remora travels the oceans without ever swimming very far. On top of its head, this slender fish carries a flat oval pad, ridged like the sole of a shoe, that works as a gentle sucker. With it, the remora fastens itself to the passing body of a shark, a turtle, or a great whale, and simply rides along, feeding on scraps and keeping its host clean of small pests. It's like a traveler who leaves the rowing to a larger boat and watches the whole sea drift by. Sometimes the wisest way forward is to let something greater carry you a while. The sea otter keeps a favorite stone tucked beneath its arm. Floating on its back among the swaying kelp, this warm-blooded diver of the cold Pacific brings up shellfish too hard to open with teeth alone. So it rests the shell upon its chest and strikes it again and again with a smooth stone, cracking it open to reach the soft meal inside. And many otters keep one prized rock for a lifetime, carrying it in a loose fold of skin like a pocket. It's like a craftsman who would never part with a well-worn tool. In the whole warm-blooded world, only a handful of animals have ever thought to let a stone do the work of a stronger jaw. The crow of one far Pacific island shapes its own tools from twigs and leaves. On the island of New Caledonia lives a clever black bird that does not simply use whatever it finds, but trims and bends a twig into a small hook, or tears a stiff leaf into a narrow barbed strip, the better to draw grubs from deep inside the wood. Young crows learn the craft by watching their elders, so that the knowledge is passed down and slowly improved from one generation to the next. It's like a small feathered workshop, where the trade is handed from parent to child. To make a tool for a task still to come is a quiet kind of foresight we once believed was ours alone. The vampire squid drifts in the dark and lives on the sea's soft snow. Despite its fierce name, this small deep-water creature harms nothing at all. Down where the sunlight never reaches, it hangs almost motionless in the cold black water, unfurling two long thread-like arms to gather the endless drift of tiny particles falling gently from the world above. The flakes we call marine snow. It's like an old soul catching quietly at whatever the current happens to bring. In a place that seems empty and severe, it has found a way to live on patience alone and on falling dust. The bowerbird builds a stage of twigs and paints it in a single favorite color. In the forests of Australia and New Guinea, the male of this modest brown bird gathers hundreds of sticks and weaves them into a little avenue or tower, then spreads the ground before it with berries, petals, shells, and bright scraps, often sorting them carefully by shade. He may spend days arranging and rearranging, stepping back as if to judge the effect, and some even crush fruit to paint the walls of their bower. It's like a small artist tending a gallery that exists for no reason but to be admired. What moves a bird to gather beauty for its own sake is one of the softer puzzles the living world leaves lying about. The pistol shrimp stuns its prey with the snap of a single claw. This little shrimp of the warm shallows carries one claw far larger than the other, built like a spring-loaded pistol. When it snaps that claw shut, it does so fast enough to fling out a bubble of water that collapses with a sharp pop, releasing a flash of heat and a pressure wave strong enough to knock a small fish senseless. It's like carrying a clap of thunder folded into a fingertip. For a creature no longer than a thumb, it fills the reef with more sound than almost anything around it, and never lifts a fin in anger. The salmon finds its way back to the very stream where it was born. After years wandering the wide ocean, this silver fish turns and swims home against the current, climbing rapids and leaping small falls to reach the same gravel bed where its own life began. It seems to steer partly by the pull of the Earth's own magnetism and partly by the remembered smell of its home waters, a scent it learned as a young fish and carried across the sea. It's like following a thread of memory laid down in childhood, all the way back to its source. That a body so small can hold a map of the whole ocean is a wonder we still turn over gently. The Arctic tern chases an endless summer from one end of the earth to the other. This slight white seabird nests in the far north. Then, as the cold draws in, sets off for the opposite pole, wintering in the light of Antarctica before turning north once more. Over a long life, its wandering path adds up to a distance greater than several journeys to the moon and back, so that no other creature sees as much daylight in a single lifetime. It's like a traveler forever walking on the sunlit side of the world. In fleeing the dark at both ends of the year, it has made its whole life into one long, quiet day. The narwhal's long spiral tusk is really a single overgrown tooth. In the cold waters of the high Arctic swims a pale whale whose male carries a straight ivory spear, sometimes half the length of his body, twisting always to the left. For a long time, no one knew its purpose, but we now see that it is a tooth grown outward through the lip, laced with countless tiny nerves that let the whale taste the sea around it. It's like wearing a tender fingertip out in front, reading the water for salt and cold. The animal that old sailors once took for the unicorn turns out to carry, not a weapon, but a slender sense reaching softly into the dark. The termite raises towers that breathe without a single moving part. Across the warm plains of Africa and Australia, these small pale insects pile earth into mounds that can stand taller than a person, riddled inside with a maze of narrow shafts. As the day warms and cools, air rises and sinks through those channels all on its own, carrying away stale breath and drawing fresh air down to the nest below, keeping the whole colony at a steady, gentle warmth. It's like a chimney that tends itself, quietly trading old air for new. A creature that never sees the plan has built, grain by grain, a lung made of soil. The spider spins a thread finer than hair yet, for its weight stronger than steel. From tiny nozzles at the tip of its body, a spider draws out silk as a liquid that hardens the instant it meets the air. And it can make several kinds at once, some sticky, some dry, some soft as a cradle for its eggs. For its weight, that thread can outmatch the metal in a bridge, and it stretches without snapping, catching the wind and the morning dew. Even now, somewhere near where you are resting, a strand of it may be swaying in the dark, holding the night's small weight of moisture. It's like a line of quiet engineering spun fresh each evening and folded away by dawn. The glass frog wears a window in its own skin. In the rainforests of Central and South America lives a small green frog whose belly is so clear that you can watch the heart beating and the food moving within. When it sleeps by day upon a leaf, the clear edges of its body blur into the green around it, softening its outline so that a passing bird sees only leaf and light. It's like a creature half made of dew, keeping almost nothing hidden. To vanish not by hiding, but by letting the world show straight through you is a gentle trick indeed. The cuckoo lays its egg in another bird's nest and slips quietly away. Rather than raise its own young, this slim gray bird waits until a smaller bird leaves its nest for a moment, then darts in to lay a single egg among the others and is gone in seconds. The young cuckoo often hatches first and grows swiftly, and the foster parents, following only their instinct to feed an open mouth, tend the large stranger as if it were their own. It's like a note left in someone else's keeping, to be sung by a voice not its mother's. Even a life begun by such quiet borrowing finds, in the end, its own way south each autumn. The honey guide leads people to wild honey and waits for its share. In parts of Africa, a small brown bird will flit close to a person, calling and flashing its tail, then fly a little way toward a hidden bee's nest and pause, guiding whoever follows from tree to tree. When the nest is opened and the honey taken, the bird feeds on the wax and grubs left behind, a bargain both sides seem to understand and pass down through the years. It's like an old agreement between two very different kinds, kept alive by nothing but trust and hunger. Few partnerships in the wild reach so plainly across the gap between feather and hand. The beaver reshapes whole valleys with nothing but teeth and patience. This broad, flat-tailed swimmer fells slender trees along a stream and drags them into the water, packing them with mud and stone until a dam rises and the water spreads behind it into a still, quiet pond. In that pool, the beaver builds its rounded lodge, safe from wolves, and around it, the flooded land slowly fills with fish, frogs, and birds drawn to the new water. It's like a single steady worker who, by tending its own doorstep, gives shelter to 100 neighbors. Few animals besides ourselves so gently bend the shape of the land to their liking. The eel crosses an ocean to breed in a sea it has never seen. The eels that fill the rivers and ponds of Europe were all born far out in the Atlantic, in a weedy stretch of open water called the Sargasso Sea, and drifted as clear leaf-shaped young to the distant coast. After years grown fat and green in fresh water, they change color, their eyes widen, and they slip back down to the sea to swim thousands of miles to their birthplace, spawn once, and let go of life. It's like a long, slow circle drawn across half the world and closed only at the very end. So much of that journey stays unseen that we have never yet watched a wild eel arrive at its spawning ground. The weaver bird ties true knots to hang its nest from a branch. In the grasslands of Africa, the male of this bright yellow bird strips long blades of grass and, working with beak and foot alone, loops and knots them into a hollow ball that swings from the tip of a slender twig. He builds it upside down from the inside, testing each strand, and if a female inspects his work and finds it wanting, he may pull it down and patiently begin again. It's like a small tailor stitching a swinging house out of nothing but grass. That a bird should learn to knot with no hands to help is one of those quiet skills we forget to be amazed by. The kangaroo rat can live its whole life without ever taking a drink. In the deserts of North America hops a small sandy-colored rodent that never needs to find open water at all. It draws almost every drop it requires from the dry seeds it eats, wringing moisture from them deep inside its body. And it is so thrifty that it wastes hardly any. while by day, it sleeps in a cool burrow to keep from drying out. It's like a traveler who carries a hidden spring within and never has to stop at the well. In a land of dust and heat, it has made thirst itself into something it simply left behind. Some cicadas count out 13 or 17 years underground before they rise. In the forests of North America, the young of these winged insects hatch and burrow down to feed quietly on roots, waiting not one season, but many, emerging all together only after a long stretch of years. Those spans, 13 and 17, are numbers that divide by nothing but themselves. And it may be that this strange arithmetic helps the swarm slip past any hunter that breeds on a tidier cycle. It's like a hidden clock wound to a lonely number, sounding only once a generation. When at last they surface in their millions, the woods fill with a song no living ear has heard for nearly 2 decades. The peacock carries a fan of eyes it cannot use to see. The male of this great bird trails a train of shimmering feathers, each one tipped with a round pattern like a watching eye. And when a female draws near, he lifts and spreads them into a trembling arc that rustles softly in the air. The colors are not paint at all, but tiny structures that scatter the light. So the blues and greens shift and glow as he slowly turns. It's like a curtain of jewels that costs him dearly to carry and dazzles for a single reason. That so much beauty should arise merely to be chosen is one of the tender riddles at the heart of life. The little cleaner Rasa keeps a shop that even sharks come to visit. On the coral reef, this small striped fish holds a fixed spot where larger fish gather and wait their turn. And it swims fearlessly into their open mouths and over their gills, picking away the pests and loose skin that trouble them. The big fish hold perfectly still and do the little one no harm, for both gain from the meeting, and the wrasse may serve hundreds of visitors in a single day. It's like a quiet barber whose chair is never empty, and whose patrons could swallow him whole yet never do. Trust, it seems, can grow even between the eater and the eaten. In a few warm forests, fireflies flash all together as one. On certain nights, along a handful of rivers and hillsides around the world, thousands of these soft glowing beetles pulse their cold light in time, going dark and bright together, like a single slow breath spread across the trees. Each insect watches its neighbors and nudges its own rhythm to match, until, with no leader at all, the whole wood beats as one. It's like a crowd of small lanterns that have quietly agreed on when to shine. Out of many separate glimmers, the night arranges, all on its own, a single gentle pulse of light. The owl crosses the dark on wings that make no sound at all. Most birds leave a soft rush of air behind them as they fly. But this hunter moves through the night in near silence, so quiet that the mouse below never hears it coming. The secret lies in its feathers, edged with a fine comb of tiny teeth along the front and a soft fringe along the back, which break the rushing air into 100 smaller streams and hush the whisper of flight. Its whole surface is velvet soft as well, swallowing what little sound remains. It's like a shadow sliding over the grass, weightless and unheard. In a world full of small rustlings, it has learned to travel as gently as the falling of the dark itself. The albatross can glide for hours without once beating its wings. Out over the open ocean, where the wind never truly rests, this great bird locks its long wings open and leans into the moving air, rising and falling along the slopes of the wind as though the sky itself were carrying it. It costs almost nothing, this kind of flight, and so the bird may wander for years across the sea before it ever touches land again. And when at last it returns to the same lonely island, it finds the same partner waiting, the pair rejoining after all that distance as if no time had passed. It's like a kite let out on an endless invisible string. Some bonds, it seems, are not undone by oceans or by years. The elephant grows its great grinding teeth, new again and again through its long life. Most animals get only 2 sets of teeth, the small early ones and then the ones they keep. But this gentle giant does something stranger. Its worn molars do not stay fixed in place, and instead they drift slowly forward along the jaw, wearing down and breaking away at the front, while fresh ones rise at the back and push into their place, perhaps 6 times over in a lifetime. It's like a slow conveyor of stone, always renewing itself, grind by patient grind. And when the very last set is finally worn smooth, the old one lays itself down at last, having chewed its way gently through 70 long years. The tiny tarsier looks out at the night through eyes as large as its own brain. This small creature, no bigger than your hand, hunts in the darkness of the forest, and to gather what little light there is, its eyes have grown enormous, each one round and gleaming and fixed so firmly in its skull that it cannot roll them at all. So instead, it turns its whole head almost the full way round to follow a sound or a movement in the dark. It's like a pair of great lanterns set in a very small face. To live in the dark, it seems, this little one gave the whole of its face over to seeing. The colossal squid watches the deep sea through the largest eyes of any animal alive. Far down where the sunlight never reaches, this soft, slow creature drifts through the cold, and to find its way in that endless black, it grew eyes as wide as a dinner plate, each one able to gather the faintest glimmer in the water. What it watches for most is not its meal, but the great whales that dive down hunting it, whose bodies stir a faint blue glow in the tiny living things of the deep. It's like a pair of enormous windows opened onto the dark. In the deepest night of the ocean, even the smallest light becomes something worth growing a great eye to catch. The shark is never left without a tooth to spare. Where our own teeth, once lost, are gone for good, this old fish keeps whole rows of them lined up behind the ones it uses, each row waiting quietly to move forward. As a tooth wears down or breaks away, another rolls up smoothly into its place, so that across a single lifetime, the shark may shed and grow many thousands of them without ever leaving a gap. It's like a slow wheel of teeth forever turning toward the front. Long before we ever learned to worry over losing them, the sea had already answered the problem, simply by never running out. The kiwi lays an egg so large it hardly seems to fit inside her. This small, round, flightless bird of distant forests, no bigger than a hen, carries and lays an egg that can weigh nearly a quarter of her whole body, one of the largest eggs for its size of any bird in the world. Inside that great shell, the chick grows slow and well fed, so that it hatches almost ready to fend for itself, needing little care once it steps out into the leaves. It's like carrying a whole small world tucked beneath you until the very last day. Some mothers give nearly everything at the start and ask for very little afterward. The flamingo is not born with its rose-colored feathers at all. The young of these tall, slender birds come into the world a plain and dusky gray, and only slowly do they take on that soft pink glow. It comes entirely from what they eat, the tiny shrimp and algae of the shallow lakes they wade through, which carry a faint coloring that gathers little by little in their feathers. Feed one differently, and the color fades back toward white. It's like being painted, gently, from the inside out by every meal. What we take for the bird's own color is really the quiet gift of the water it stands in. The armadillo often brings 4 young into the world, and all of them are the same. From a single tiny egg, this armored little creature does something rare among animals, splitting that one beginning into 4, so that its litter arrives as identical quadruplets, always the same sex, each one the near-perfect copy of the others. They share the very same instructions, written once and divided evenly among them. It's like a single thought quietly becoming 4. Out of one small start, the world sometimes makes a whole gentle family, matched down to the smallest detail. In one dry corner of the world grows a plant that keeps only 2 leaves for 1,000 years. Out on the gravel plains of a coastal desert, where rain almost never falls, the welwitschia sends up just a single pair of leaves in its entire life. And those 2 never stop growing, creeping outward year by year, until the wind splits and frays them into a great tangled heap. Beneath them, the plant may live well past 1,000 years, sipping moisture from the fog that drifts in off the sea. It's like an old soul wearing the same 2 garments for an age. Out here, slowness is simply another word for endurance. A whole grove of trees may, in truth, be a single living thing. Across a quiet hillside, thousands of slender trunks can rise from one shared web of roots hidden beneath the soil. Every trunk a part of the same ancient plant, sending up new stems as the old ones fall away. Some of these buried root systems have been alive for many thousands of years, far older than anything you might guess from the young trees standing above. As you lie here in the dark, breathing slow, somewhere such a grove is stirring softly in the wind, one being pretending gently to be a forest. It's like a single heart beating quietly beneath a crowd of waving hands. What looks like many is sometimes, underneath it all, quietly, one. The mimosa folds its leaves shut at the lightest touch. Brush a fingertip against this small plant, and, within a moment, its delicate leaflets draw together and its stems droop down, as though it had suddenly grown shy. It moves not by muscle, but by water, releasing the pressure inside certain cells so quickly that the leaves collapse in on themselves, perhaps to startle a nibbling insect, or to seem less tempting to eat. Stranger still, it seems able to learn, growing calm and ignoring a harmless touch that comes again and again. It's like a creature dreaming, flinching softly at something in its sleep. Even without a single nerve, some green things seem to feel the world go quietly by. The toucan carries its great colorful bill for far more than show. That enormous beak, longer than the bird's own head and painted in warm, bright bands, looks far too heavy to be of any use, yet it weighs almost nothing, built of thin bone and airy honeycomb within, and it does a quiet work the bird cannot see, for it is laced through with blood vessels, and by sending warmth out into it, or drawing that warmth back, the toucan sheds, or keeps its heat just as it needs. It's like carrying a soft open window that can be widened or closed against the warmth of the day. Even the most striking things a creature wears may hide a gentle, practical purpose underneath. The little fennec fox wears the whole desert in its oversized ears, smallest of all the foxes, with a face that could rest in your palm. It carries ears so large they seem borrowed from a bigger animal, and they serve it in two soft ways at once. Through their thin skin, laced with fine vessels, the day's heat drifts out and away, cooling the small body against the burning sand. And they catch the faintest sounds of little creatures moving beneath the ground, so that the fox can hunt in the cool of the night by listening alone. It's like holding two open sails turned to gather the quiet. In the hardest places, a body learns to make one gift do the work of many. The chick of one strange bird is born with tiny claws upon its wings. Deep in the flooded forests of South America, the young hoatzin hatches with small hooked claws at the bend of each wing, and it uses them to clamber through the branches above the water, hauling itself back up to the nest after it drops down to escape. As it grows, those little claws fade and vanish, and it becomes an ordinary winged bird like any other. It's like a brief echo of some far older creature, surfacing for a few short weeks before it sinks away again. Now and then, a life reaches back and touches, for just a moment, the shape of an ancestor long gone. When it is truly frightened, the opossum falls into a stillness like death. Faced with danger, it cannot flee. This small creature does not decide to trick anyone. Its body simply takes over, growing limp and cool, its breathing so faint it can barely be seen, while a sour scent seeps from it as though it had already passed away. To a hunter that wants only fresh and living prey, it turns suddenly uninteresting and is often left where it lies. It's like a small player who cannot help but fall into the part completely, and when the danger has drifted on, it wakes softly and simply carries on with its night. The oyster answers a small irritation by making something smooth and lovely. When a grain of grit works its way inside its shell, the soft creature cannot push it back out, and so it does the only thing it can, wrapping the intruder over and over in the same gleaming stuff it uses to line its home. Layer settles upon layer, season upon season, until the rough little trespasser has become a round and shining pearl. It's like turning the stone in your shoe into something you would keep forever. Sometimes the gentlest answer to what troubles us is simply to cover it, patiently, in beauty. Each night, the parrotfish wraps itself in a blanket of its own making. On the reef, when the light begins to fade, this bright fish blows a thin cocoon of clear jelly around its whole body, sealing itself softly inside before it settles down to sleep. The bubble may hide its scent from hunters passing in the dark, and shield it from the tiny biting things that drift through the water at night. And by day, it does another quiet work, grinding coral in its beak and letting it fall as fine white sand, so that whole pale beaches are in truth passed gently through these fish. It's like sleeping inside a lantern made of one's own breath. So much of the soft shore we love was made, grain by grain, by a fish drifting over the reef. The humble limpet carries in its mouth the strongest material in the living world. Clinging to the rocks along the shore, this small cone-shaped snail spends its life scraping algae from stone. And to do that for years without wearing away, it grew rows of tiny teeth made of the toughest natural stuff yet found, stronger even than the fibers we spin for armor. Woven through with threads of iron-hardened mineral, they grind against bare rock for a whole lifetime and still hold. It's like a quiet little file that somehow never dulls. The mightiest things, now and then, are hidden in the smallest and most overlooked of mouths. The sea cucumber can grow soft or firm, just as it pleases. This gentle creature of the sea floor, shaped like a soft tube, holds a strange power over its own body, loosening the fibers within it until it can pour like liquid into a narrow crack, then drawing them tight again to hold itself firm and still. And when something truly troubles it, it may cast its own inner parts out into the water as a soft distraction and later grow them slowly back anew. It's like a body that can melt and set again at will. There are ways of being alive so far from our own that they feel like quiet dreams the sea is having in the dark. The starfish can grow a whole new self from a single lost arm. Most creatures, when they lose a piece of themselves, simply learn to live without it. But this slow five-armed wanderer of the sea floor carries the map of its whole body inside each of its limbs, so that even one severed arm, if a small part of the center travels with it, can slowly sprout new arms and begin again as a fresh and complete animal. It's like a single branch quietly becoming a whole new tree. There is something restful in a body that never truly ends, but only begins again somewhere else. A sponge can be broken into pieces and quietly put itself back together. Among the oldest and simplest of animals, the sea sponge has no heart, no muscles, no nerves to speak of, only a soft body woven through with tiny channels. Were it pressed through a fine mesh until it came apart into single loose cells, those cells would slowly find one another again in the still water, drifting back together and rebuilding the whole creature from scratch. It's like a house whose bricks remember how they were once arranged. Some forms of life hold together not by command, but by a gentle willingness to return. The creature that drifts on the waves as one is really many lives joined into one. What looks like a single floating being, trailing long threads beneath a small blue sail, is in truth a colony of tiny bodies, each grown for a single task and none able to live alone. One part becomes the float that catches the wind. Others gather food. Others tend the young. All of them budded from a single beginning and joined forever into a single drifting whole. It's like a crew that slowly became the very ship it sailed. It softly blurs the line we like to draw between the one and the many. The moray eel keeps a second, hidden set of jaws deep in its throat. Most fish draw in their food by opening wide and pulling a rush of water inward. But the moray, tucked into the narrow cracks of the reef, has no room for that great inward gulp. So it grew a second pair of small jaws far back in its throat, and these slide forward to take gentle hold of a meal and draw it down, once the first jaws have caught it. It's like a quiet helper waiting just out of sight to lend a second pair of hands. Life, when the usual way is closed to it, so often finds another door. The flatfish begins life swimming upright, then slowly lies down on its side. When it first hatches, a young flounder looks like any other little fish, one eye on each side of its head, drifting near the surface. But as it grows, it tilts over to rest upon the sea floor, and one eye slowly journeys across its own head to join the other, so that both eyes end up on the upward-facing side, watching the water above while the pale underside settles into the sand. It's like a face gently rearranging itself to suit a new way of living. We are all, in our own slow ways, reshaped by the ground we come to rest upon. The gentle manatee is a close cousin of the elephant, drifting through warm, shallow rivers, cropping soft mouthfuls of water plants. This round and peaceful creature seems to belong wholly to the sea. Yet its nearest living relatives walk the land on great gray legs. For the manatee's ancestors once grazed on shore before wading back into the water long ago, keeping to this day the thick nails on their flippers and a slow, heavy calm that echoes their distant kin. It's like meeting a quiet, sea-dwelling relative you never knew you had. The family tree of life reaches across water and land in ways that still gently surprise. The Venus flytrap waits and quietly counts before it closes. Growing in poor and hungry soil, this small green plant has learned to gather what the ground cannot give by catching the occasional visiting insect. But it does not snap at every stray touch. Fine hairs inside its leaves must be brushed more than once within a short while before the trap will close, and several touches more before it begins to feed, so that a falling raindrop or a blowing speck is quietly ignored. It's like a patience that refuses to be fooled by the wind. Even a plant, it seems, can wait until it is sure. The barnacle spends its whole life standing on its head. It begins as a tiny drifting speck, swimming freely through the sea, until one day it finds a stone, or a hull, or the back of a whale, and settles down for good. There it glues its own head firmly to the surface with one of the strongest natural cements ever found, then kicks its feathery legs up into the water to comb small food from the passing current, feeding for all the rest of its days upside down. It's like pitching a tent and never once leaving it again. There is a kind of peace in choosing a single place and giving your whole self to it. The hagfish can turn the water around it to slime in a single moment. This soft, eel-shaped creature of the deep has neither jaw nor bone, and when something troubles it, it answers not by fleeing, but by releasing a thin thread of stuff that swells the instant it meets seawater into great clouds of clear jelly. In the space of a breath, a mere handful becomes bucketfuls, filling the water and slipping it free, after which it simply ties itself into a knot and slides cleanly out of its own slime. It's like a magician's scarf that never seems to reach its end. The softest of answers can sometimes be the surest way through. The ocean sunfish drifts through the open sea as the heaviest bony fish alive, shaped like a great swimming head that simply stops where its tail ought to be. This strange, gentle giant can grow as heavy as a small car, and yet it feeds mostly on soft drifting jellies with almost no goodness in them. To take in enough, it eats slowly and endlessly, then rises to lie flat at the surface, warming itself in the sun after long, cold dives into the deep. It's like a wide, pale moon come up to rest upon the waves. Some of the very largest lives are lived at the gentlest of paces. One quiet toad carries her young in the skin of her own back. Living in slow tropical waters, this flat brown creature has found a tender way to keep her eggs safe. As they are laid, they settle gently against her back, and her skin slowly rises around each one until they are held in soft little pockets, where they grow through all their early changes, hidden and protected. Then, when at last they are ready, tiny, fully formed young push out into the water to begin their own lives. It's like a garden of small sleepers tucked into a living quilt. Care, out in the wild, wears 1,000 unexpected shapes. The pitcher plant grows a deep cup that becomes a small world all its own. Like the flytrap, it lives where the soil gives little, and so it draws visiting insects down into a tall, slippery vessel filled with quiet liquid. But the pool it makes does far more than feed the plant. For certain tiny creatures have learned to live their whole lives within that cup, safe among the very waters that undo others, sharing in whatever falls. It's like a well that is a trap, or a home, depending only on who you happen to be. Even the smallest hollow can hold an entire living community. A whole forest of bamboo may flower all at once, and only once in a lifetime. For years upon years, these tall green stems grow and spread without ever blooming, sometimes for the better part of a century. Then, guided by some slow inner clock, every plant grown from the same root across a whole region flowers together in a single season, scatters its seed, and quietly dies away, leaving the next generation to rise in its place. It's like 100 candles lit and blown out on the very same breath. There are rhythms in the green world so long that a human life may never see them twice. The strangler fig begins its life high in the branches and grows slowly downward. A small bird drops a seed into the fork of a tall tree, and there, far above the shaded floor, it sprouts in the open light. From that lofty start, it sends long roots creeping down the trunk toward the earth, thickening year by patient year, until they wrap the host tree in a living lattice and stand, at last, as a great tree in their own right. It's like a vine that slowly becomes a tower. In the crowded forest, some lives reach the ground only after first reaching the sky. The garden eel spends its days swaying gently, rooted in the sand. Across certain sandy slopes beneath the sea, whole colonies of these slender creatures rise part way from their burrows, leaning softly into the current to pluck tiny drifting food from the passing water. Each keeps its tail anchored safely below, so that at the first hint of trouble it can slip down out of sight. And from a distance, the swaying field of them looks for all the world like tall grass bending in a breeze. It's like a meadow that grows from the sea floor and can vanish in a single blink. Even stillness, it turns out, can be a way of moving with the world. The tallest trees lift water higher into the air than almost seems possible. A great redwood may stand as tall as a small hill, and every day it must draw water from its roots all the way up to its highest needles, against the steady, patient pull of the earth. It does this without a single pump, letting water climb through the very thinnest of inner threads as each leaf quietly breathes out above, drawing the whole slender column upward behind it. Rest your hand on your own chest for a moment as you breathe, slow and easy, and know that a tree, in its own way, is breathing too, only far more slowly. The mightiest climb, it seems, can be made one gentle breath at a time. The feather star waves through the water with arms like drifting fronds. Long ago, seas the world over were carpeted with its stalked ancestors, gentle creatures rooted to the bottom and reaching upward with feathery arms to gather food from the current. Many of their kind still live among us today, and some have loosed themselves from the stalk entirely, crawling softly on curled arm tips, or even swimming with a slow and dreamlike waving. It's like watching a flower decide, at long last, to go wandering. The old shapes of the sea have not all vanished. Some of them are simply drifting still. The brittle star may see the world with the whole of its skin. A cousin of the starfish, with long, slender, snaking arms. This creature has no eyes at all, and yet it moves surely toward shelter, and away from the open light. Across its body lie countless tiny crystal shapes that gather and bend the light, so that its entire skin may act in a soft and scattered way as one great gentle eye. It's like a body that quietly watches in every direction at once. Perhaps there are far more ways of seeing than we have ever thought to name. The lotus can sleep in the mud for 1,000 years and still awaken. Deep in the cool silt of an old pond, its round seeds settle and wait, sealed in a coat so tough that time itself seems to lose its grip on them. When at last the water stirs them and the warmth returns, the ancient thing inside remembers how to grow, unfolding a green leaf toward a sun that shone on no one it ever knew. It's like a letter written long ago and opened gently by a stranger. Some patience is so deep it can outlast the memory of what it was waiting for. The dandelion sends its children out on the softest of wings. When its yellow flower has closed and opened again as a globe of silver down, each tiny seed hangs beneath a little crown of feathery threads, waiting for a breath of wind. That crown catches the moving air and lifts the seed away, carrying it over fields and fences to some far patch of open ground where it may begin again. It's like a small parade of paper lanterns let go all at once into the sky. Letting go, for some living things, is simply how they travel the world. Beneath the shallow sea, a single meadow of grass may be among the oldest living things on Earth. Seagrass is not seaweed, but a true flowering plant that returned long ago to the water, spreading not so much by scattering seeds as by creeping quietly outward through the sand. In some warm bays, a single plant has been growing this way, on and on, for many thousands of years, until one gentle meadow is really one enormous ancient life. It's like a whispered word passed along so far that its beginning is lost. Slowness, given enough time, becomes a kind of forever. The maple lets its seeds go spinning to the earth like little wings. Each seed grows a thin, papery blade to one side, so that when it falls from the branch, it does not simply drop, but turns round and round, slowing its descent and drifting away from the shadow of its parent. In this gentle spin, it may catch a breeze and travel farther than it ever could by falling straight. It's like a tiny green helicopter setting itself softly down. Even a small seed, it seems, has learned to take its time coming home to the ground. The mangrove makes its home exactly where the land and the sea cannot decide. Along warm and muddy shores, it stands on arching roots, half in the water and half in the air, drinking from a tide that would poison most other trees. It sieves the salt away at its roots, or gathers it into old leaves and lets them quietly fall, and so it thrives where nothing else will grow. It's like a patient guardian standing knee-deep at the edge of two worlds. Some lives are made for the in-between places and find their peace there. The song of a great whale can travel across an entire ocean. Deep below the surface, where sound carries far better than it ever does in air, a singing whale sends its long, low notes thus rolling outward through the dark. And in the right cold layers of the sea, those notes may reach another whale hundreds of miles away. No one can say all that the songs are for, only that they change slowly, season by season, as if a tune were passing quietly from singer to singer. It's like a lullaby drifting from one sleeper to another across a darkened room. In the wide sea, even loneliness has a voice that carries. Once a year, by the light of the full moon, a whole reef releases its young at the very same moment. On a certain warm night, reading the moonlight and the temperature of the water, countless corals let go together into the sea, filling it with a slow rising snow of tiny drifting specks. By moving all at once, they give their young the best of chances in the wide dark water. It's like 1,000 small lanterns lifted gently upward on a single quiet breath. Even creatures rooted in one place can keep an appointment with the moon. A cushion of moss can dry to dust and come back to life with a single rain. When the air grows dry, some mosses do not fight it. They simply let themselves grow brittle and brown, folding down and waiting, their small lives held in a kind of suspended hush. Then the rain returns, and within minutes, the whole soft carpet drinks, unfurls, and greens again. As though it had never paused at all, it's like a green thought that fades in the drought and is remembered by the rain. Rest, for some, is not an ending, only a waiting for water. The giant tortoise carries a slow and steady heart across more than 100 years. It moves without hurry, feeds without hurry, and lives at a pace so unrushed that its whole long life seems to unfold in something like slow motion. A creature that spends so little, so gently, seems to spend instead in time, outlasting even the people who first watched it hatch. Rest your own hand over your heart for a moment now, in the dark, and feel it keeping its patient count. Perhaps a life is not measured by how fast the heart beats, but by how gently. The young fern comes into the world tightly curled, like a question not yet asked. Before it opens, each new frond is rolled up from its tip in a snug green spiral, tucked close against itself. And as it grows, it slowly uncoils from the center outward, opening a little more with each passing day. This gentle unrolling keeps the tenderest tip protected until the very last moment. It's like a sleeper stretching, slowly, at the first soft light of morning. Some things arrive in the world already folded and take all the time they need to open. The olive tree can hold on to life for many thousands of years. In the dry, sun-warmed lands around old seas, some olives standing today were already ancient when the first stories were written down. Their trunks grow gnarled and hollow, splitting and twisting, yet never quite dying. Even as the old heartwood gives way, fresh growth keeps rising from the living edges, so the tree renews itself out of its own slow ruin. It's like a candle that keeps relighting itself from its own last ember. Age, in such a life, is not decay, but a deepening. The moonflower keeps its blossoms closed all through the day and opens them only to the night. As the light fades and the air grows cool, its large pale petals unfurl, glowing softly in the dark and breathing a sweet scent into the evening for the moths that drift from bloom to bloom. By morning, it is closed again, its quiet work already done. It's like a small white lamp lit only for those who travel after dusk. Some beauty is meant not for the brightness of day, but for the gentle dark. The giant kelp climbs from the sea floor toward the light with surprising speed. Anchored to the rock below by a root-like grip, it lifts long golden ribbons upward through the water, each one held aloft by small floats of gas, reaching for the sunlight far overhead. In good waters, it can grow the length of a hand in a single day, until whole underwater forests sway together in the cool green current. It's like a woodland that rises and bends with every passing wave. Even the sea, it turns out, has its groves and its quiet clearings. Some pine cones stay sealed shut until the day a fire passes through. Coated in a hard resin, they hold their seeds tightly closed through year after patient year, waiting until the heat of a passing flame melts the seal and lets them fall at last onto ground swept clear and open. In this way, the tree hands its children to the very fire that clears their path. It's like a gift kept locked away until exactly the right and unlikely moment. Even fire, held gently within the story, can be a beginning rather than an end. A fallen willow branch can quietly become a whole new tree. Push a fresh cutting of willow into damp ground, and, more often than not, it will send out roots of its own and rise, in time, into a tree you could not tell from the one it came from. Within the willow runs a great readiness to begin again, a hidden store of the very signals that call new roots into being. It's like a single verse that grows, all on its own, into an entire song. Life, in sum, is not held in one place, but scattered softly through the whole of the body. The cork oak can give away its outer bark and grow it back again and again. Its thick, spongy coat can be peeled away in whole smooth sheets without harming the living tree beneath. And slowly, over years, the oak simply grows another to take its place. In this way, a single tree may be gently gathered from many times across a life that spans 2 centuries or more. It's like a book that quietly rewrites its own cover while the story inside goes calmly on. To give something up, it seems, need not always mean to lose it. The air itself is quietly full of drifting spores, each one waiting for its moment. Countless mosses and ferns and fungi send their tiniest beginnings out into the wind, so fine and so light that they can float for great distances, riding the slow currents of the sky before settling wherever the world will have them. Most will never find their place, and yet enough of them do that green keeps returning again and again to the bare and broken corners of the earth. It's like an endless, invisible sowing, carried on nothing but the breath of the air. Even in the emptiest seeming sky, life is quietly on its way somewhere. And so, slowly, our long journey comes to its resting place. We've drifted through more of this old and patient world than we could ever hope to hold in a single night. From the first faint thread of life in the dark of the ancient sea, to the whales that once walked on legs across dry land, and the small warm creatures that still lay their eggs in quiet rivers. We've wandered past forests turned to stone and coal, past eyes invented over and over in the deep, past seeds that sleep for 1,000 years, and songs that cross whole oceans. So many shapes, so many ways of being alive, and every last one of them woven from the same gentle thread. And that same thread runs, softly, through you as well. Every branching story we have followed tonight is, in some quiet way, your own. For you are cousin to the tortoise and the fern, to the coral and the whale, all of you written in the same old alphabet, all of you shaped by the same slow patience of time. The salt in your blood still remembers an ancient sea. The very breath in your chest was first handed to you by creatures far too small to see. You are not a visitor here. You are the living tip of a story 4 billion years in the telling, and tonight it rests and breathes and dreams in you. Even now, as you lie still, that long story goes quietly on. Somewhere a seed is settling into the dark of the soil. A tide is turning slowly over the roots of the mangroves. a great slow tree is drawing one more patient breath toward the sky. The world keeps changing, gently, by the smallest of steps, while you rest here and ask nothing of it at all. If you happen to still be awake, there's no need to stir. You can simply let the next quiet journey begin on its own and carry you softly onward from here. And if you'd like to drift off to more journeys like this one, softly told, you might consider subscribing whenever it suits you. There is always more of this old and beautiful world left to wander, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, let your breathing slow, and let the long story hold you as it has held everything that ever lived. You are a small and welcome part of something very old and very kind. Rest now. Sleep gently. Good night.